Good evening, and welcome to the June 24th meeting of the Livermore City Council. I now call the meeting to order. Let the roll call show that all members of the council are present and accounted for. I ask that you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. And now to the city attorney to report out on action taken in the closed session.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. I actually have two items to report this evening. With regard to the second item on your closed session agenda, I'd like to report that the City Council, as a term for the negotiations for the hotel, the City Council has authorized City Manager Mark Roberts to prepare a letter on behalf of the city as the property owner for the properties listed for that description for number 2, to allow Presidio Companies LLC and or 2205 Railroad Avenue LLC to apply to the city for a development agreement pursuant to Livermore Development Code Chapter 9.04 and Government Code Section 65864 at SEC. So that's for that item. I have another announcement to make relative to item number 6 on the closed session agenda. This announcement is being made pursuant to Government Code Section 54957.1 sub A 1 sub A. The City Council has authorized me to execute a settlement agreement on behalf of the City of Livermore with John D. Weiner and his client Jane Doe in the amount of $650,000 to resolve the claim associated with Mr. Weiner's letter dated February 13th, 2019. A copy of the letter is in my office on file, and a copy of the settlement agreement will be on file there starting tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's see. I'll start at the very beginning. Just to let everybody know, I'm going to reorder the agenda. We will be considering 5.01 after the consent calendar and the citizens forum. We'll do 5.01 and 5.03, the LMDs. That's Landscape Maintenance District. There is some time sensitivity on that. It should be, at least in history, those have been very quick matters to consider. And then we will handle 5.02 and 6.02 simultaneously. So just kind of give everybody a heads up on that. 6.02 is the resolution coming from the Intergovernmental Committee and regarding vaping. We felt since both issues were regarding vaping and tobacco, we would consider them both at the same time. So with that, reiterating 501, 503, followed by 5.02 at the same time as 6.02. So with that, we have a presentation on the Community Asset Management Program. This is very exciting for some of us that have been working on this for years, and we have Susan Frost, who has certainly got a tremendous amount of experience on that.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council members. I am Susan Frost, Chair of the Community Asset Management Program Committee, also known as the CAMP Committee. Thank you for having the committee present an annual report regarding our activities this past year. I would like to acknowledge the rest of the committee, which includes Bob Dashner, who is our vice chair, Jennifer Estridge, Regina Bonanno, Gordon Jones, Jennifer Yeamans, Jan Evans, and Paul Foster. Major accomplishments of the committee this past year include the committee staffing an informational booth at the Civic Center Library in February of this year and the Farmers Market also in March of this year, where we presented information to the public about the asset management program and the city's public infrastructure. Over the past year, the committee has reviewed potential policy options for sidewalks and street trees and hosted a public camp meeting on this topic in March of this year. The committee has also discussed ways that the city can best connect with residents regarding asset management. The committee continues to have productive conversations regarding infrastructure policy options. Over the next year, the committee will continue to provide feedback on public education campaigns and asset policy options. We look forward to continuing our work advising staff during the development of this important program. Thank you again for supporting the CAMP Committee and our efforts to develop a comprehensive asset management program.
Any questions regarding the camp? Great. This is going to be huge because, as we've pointed out, there's $2.5 billion in assets in the city of Livermore, and we need to make sure that we can continue those assets serve this community for generations to come. So thank you very much for that.
I wanted to make a comment. I would just wanted to thank you for what you and the committee is doing, and that this is key to our long-term financial viability. So it's very important. So thank you.
Very good. Thank you very much. Moving on to the Citizens Forum. These are items that are not on the agenda. The City Council can neither deliberate nor take action on these items. We ask that you keep your comments to 3 minutes or less. I have three cards. Greg Scott, Mary Perner, and Carrie Olds. Oh, if you could hand your card to the city clerk, you can sneak behind Greg here and hand that over. Mr. Scott.
I am Greg Scott. I speak on homelessness in Livermore. Much appreciation for City of Livermore police officers Ishmael and Martin, who are dedicated full-time in duty to the homeless. They are working in a possible framework. That is not what they said. That is what I know of. It is what I say here and now. I spoke with Officer Ishmael a couple of weeks ago. He asked me if I had seen a lot of new faces. This was in regard to new homeless here in Livermore. I replied, yes, I have. I then spoke with the numbers from my readings. A preliminary estimate of the 2019 point-in-time count of the homeless in Alameda County is around 8,000, up from around 5,700 in 2018. Officer Ishmael said he did not know the numbers, but that he heard that homelessness had increased 43% in Alameda County from 2018. By simple algebra, my handy phone calculator determined both their statistics are nearly the same. The point is that we are not solving the overall homelessness problem here. By dichotomous, that is two branches, rationale. Either we have intent to solve overall homelessness and are not getting the necessary results, or we do not have the intent to solve overall homelessness, which would beg the question, where is our humanity here? Either way, overtly or inovertly, it registers a lack of imperative in a city that lists housing and homelessness in its top 3 initiatives. Is it all right for the homeless to die from their circumstances? Is it all right for the homeless to rot? Is it all right for the homeless to be sick without adequate care? Is it all right for homelessness to be out of control? What is the thinking of the contented class? That they are immune to the accelerating social degradation of homelessness? Let Los Angeles be an example of how wrong the thinking, this thinking or lack thereof is. Some of the nouns associated with downtown Los Angeles homeless encampments are typhus, typhoid fever, and rats. Rats have infested the central Los Angeles police station from nearby homeless encampments. Are we evolving toward the medieval? Los Angeles is spending in the neighborhood of $630 million per year on homelessness. Obviously, something is very wrong in the resource allocation, as it also is here in Livermore with resource allocation. $250,000 for homeless and Human Services Commission grants, and here we have in Livermore unsheltered women living like animals, actually worse than animals, because I do not think animals have any concept of having no place, and that their very existence is a trespass. What do we expect desperate individuals to do? We fail to understand the interrelationships involved. The highest suicide rate since World War II in the United States, the highest suicide rate in 15 to 24-year-olds in 2 decades, a 19% poverty rate in California, 144 million Americans living in poverty or low income near poverty. A greatly expanding homeless population here. Are we thinking that we are impotent to solve the overall homelessness population here because we're a municipality? If the threat of this problem is not local, what is it? Ethereal? We speak of disaster preparedness and emergency preparedness in this chamber. Homelessness is a current disaster. If we had a national disaster and the housed lost their abodes, as is increasingly the case from megafires in California, would the electorate be satisfied with a response equivalent to the response or lack thereof we now witness toward the homeless? We are playing the homeless games. The longer the status quo persists, the more expensive and deleterious homelessness will be, economically and socially. There is no justification for no overall solution to homelessness here.
Thank you, Mr. Scott. Mary Perner, Carrie Oldis, Marielle Evan. Ms. Perner.
Good evening. I'm here speaking for Lights for Liberty, a vigil to end human detention camps. Most of us have been appalled by recent media descriptions of the concentration camp conditions in our country's immigrant detention camps. These conditions include, Mylar blankets being used by people who are forced to sleep on concrete floors, children assigned to care for toddlers, no Toothbrushes, no soap, no showers or bathing for weeks. These kids are dirty. They're getting lice. The lights are on overhead 24 hours a day. There is such crowding that there is sometimes no room to stretch or sleep. Interviewers find that the kids are falling asleep at the interview table because they've been unable to sleep in their confinement. Outrage at this situation is spreading around the country and in other parts of the world. On July 12th, there is an event plan, and again, possibly it will stretch around the country and in other parts of the world. Many of us would like to have a local event, and that is why I'm here today to ask the council's support for our event. Right now, it's in the most tentative, it's very, very tentative. Details are not fleshed out, but we're going to have it happen in some way. Not only would we like your support, we would also appreciate it if one or two of you would speak at the event. So more details to come, and I thank you for your time this evening.
Thank you, Mayor. That sounds a little bit like the Rally for Families that we had last year, and both Councilmember Monroe and I were at that event. So keep us posted, please.
We absolutely will.
Thank you. Carrie Oldis, Marielle Evan, County Cops.
Good evening. My name is Carrie Olds, and I'm with Spectrum Community Services, the Meals on Wheels program for the Tri-Valley. Today, we served nearly 200 homebound seniors a hot meal. And to do so, we need to continue to get our voice out there and for you all to know that we exist. I had the opportunity to attend the zip trips here in Livermore, and that was a great opportunity to get out and have the community see who we are. I did grow up here, so it was nice. I actually ran into an old high school friend, the police officer that was there doing community service that day. So that was a nice thing. However, I do have a new event coming up, and that is the Feed the Need. We are doing 2 events this year. Our first event will be at the A's game on July 25th. It's going to be a throwdown, a bag of lunch program. So basically, businesses, groups, organizations can sponsor a team. They come and they bag lunches to see how fun that is to do. There's a competition. We have a golden bag award at the end of that. When those that are attending at the throwdown at the A's game would then go in and watch the game as a group. And then we'll have a secondary one in September at a park in Pleasanton, like we did last year. It's a great event to get out to kind of see how we do some of our things. And the competition is fun because everyone's they think it's so easy to pack a lunch and get it out to the senior. It's not as easy as y'all think it is to do. However, we are pleased to be able to do so. And in doing so, we are keeping seniors in their home. Just for the record, in the last 15 days, I've had a new applicant every single day. So that's a heavy pace that we're moving at, and we have to come up with ways to continue to fund that. And that's why we do these additional fundraisers to make sure that our seniors that cannot get out are still getting that hot meal and that safety check. Thank you.
The throwdown in Pleasanton last year was a great event. That was a lot of fun. So.
Yes, I heard it was, and I'm excited to see what we do this year.
Yeah, the walking and talking vegetables were a real nice touch.
Yes, thank you.
So great, thank you. Marielle Evan, County Cops.
Good evening, City Council. I'm Marielle Evans. I'm the Operations Director of City Serve of the Tri-Valley, and I just wanted to present a couple of really interesting cases that we've been coming across in our homeless clients who have been engaging with our services and the wider services network here in the Tri-Valley. So I just wanted to give you some updates. I know Aaron was here, Aaron Horder, our Director of Services, was here prior meetings, and I think that we're just really wanting to keep you guys updated on the breadth of services that are being offered by multiple organizations here in the Tri-Valley and the active work that we're involved in. Just a few weeks ago, a female veteran who has been living here in Livermore in her car for several years was connected to and actually moved in and had her first night in her apartment. She had been connected to many organizations throughout the years such as Open Heart Kitchen, the Cornerstone Outreach, Abode Services, Vineyard Christian Fellowship, Asbury United Methodist, and many others that while she was just kind of trying to figure out how to survive and create income and housing, CityServe came into connection with her, I believe, around November of last year, and we connected her with VASH because of her veteran status. VASH for the VA worked really hard to get her connected to a voucher, and that was a challenge over quite a number of months to get connected to a placing that would take that voucher, but she did find a placement recently and has moved in from living in her car, their 2 cats, now in a stable apartment, and is living indoors, and now we're kind of wraparound services to help her transitioning into housing. Because it's not as easy as it seems just to go from a car for years and years into an apartment. And then another update is that for over 16 years, a man here in Livermore has been living in his car, and several years ago, out of the goodness of his soul, took in a woman who had been suffering with pretty severe health issues, including regular seizures. She had been having these seizures for most of her life and had been unable to really work or sustain any kind of stability. The gentleman is a hardworking business owner who lives in his car, right? So we want to continue this conversation about the stigma around homeless. They're not people who just need to get a job. This person has a business, but he happens to not be able to find affordable housing. So he has been taking care of this woman, and we have connected them with resources. Recently, we've got them connected to Social Security and disability, and those resources have now starting to pan out, and we're potentially, it's not as happy of an ending as moving in from the car, but it looks like there's more and more resources and housing available, including back pay from her disability. So again, that's kind of leveraging the larger network of resources. And just this afternoon, we found out that someone who's been living in their car, severely homeless and distraught with their housing situation, has been able to locate and move into housing, and they're moving in this weekend. So it is happening. It's a long process and requires a ton of collaboration with so many organizations. We at CityServe are only a piece of that puzzle, but we're grateful to play a part. So thank you, and have a good evening.
Well, thank you very much. And you underscore the tremendous challenge this imposes. It's not so much about whether there's will or intent or lack of intent. It comes down to resources. And as you pointed out, one of the things that we found in the survey that we had for members of the homeless community that are veterans is that over 90% of them, like this young woman you were talking about, over 90% are not receiving the benefits to which they are entitled. The VASH vouchers that you spoke of. She was entitled to that years ago, but there's a failure by the Veterans Administration to find those folks and to make that connection. And that's one of the things that we here in the city have focused on, is to make that connection so that people can get the resources that they are entitled to. Because so many times, as you pointed out, that can lift people out of homelessness, those resources. And thank you. CityServe does a tremendous job here in the community. So thank you very much.
7 years she lived in her car. 7 years.
Connie Copps, Carl Winty.
Hi, I'm Connie Copps on Tulip Way, and I was coming today with my company Use a Bag to try to get maybe some connections with StopWaste.org, and I thought maybe Robert Carling could help. You're on the board for that. Many years ago, I presented to StopWaste.org, but it's really kind of hard to get a way to get out to Oakland sometimes for me. And I'm wondering maybe if there has been any reporting on my proposals to them that you know of. I know the last time that you reported that when you came back from the StopWaste.org meeting, you had mentioned that you were in attendance, but you didn't really elaborate on that. And I'm wondering if they have any plans to come here. StopWaste.org is such a big organization. And, you know, a lot of the organizations that countywide that affect Livermore residents and Livermore businesses. Sometimes just getting on the BART or getting parking where, you know, it might be difficult to find parking on a regular basis. I think it would be nice maybe if you could try to solicit stopwaste.org to come to Livermore once in a while and present what's new. And they haven't done that in a while. I was wondering if you could do that. Thank you.
Thank you. Carl Winty.
Honorable Mayor, Council, staff, my name's Carl Wenty. I live just outside of the town of Livermore, so I don't get to vote in this great town, but I care deeply about this town. And as usual, I'm up here to say thank you for serving the community and trying to make the world a better place. To all those that spoke that care so deeply about humans and humanity, I salute you so much. Thank you, and may we continue to not have an inert citizenry, but an active citizenry that cares about people, that cares about what is good government, that cares about people are 7 years in their car sleeping when we have to roll over a grant into next year because we can't put those active dollars to work. I know there's no simple solutions to extremely complex problems, but that doesn't mean we shouldn't continue to have discourse about it. So, as always, those that put on a bulletproof vest to go to work, I salute you. Thank you for what you do. One of the most important things, keeping a society safe. I think Mrs. Superintendent of the schools back there, educating our folks, and a school board member back there, but educating our kids and continuing to create the next generation of non-inert citizens that will be of the people, for the people, and by the people in this democratic republic that we have. So just want to express my appreciation as usual, and just am humbled by the people that come up and the jobs that they do, the volunteerism with City Serve, with Meals on Wheels, just everything. And that was just to name a few, because I know there's a lot out there. Thank you to the camp folks, right? Managing $2.5 billion worth of assets should be a high priority, so we continue to have the upkeep out here in everything that we do. The consent calendar, I'm always in awe of how many pages go into that consent calendar and everything that goes with it. And I know y'all got to read every word. I know you two got to read every word, probably most of y'all. Like, there's a lot that goes into it. A lot of people sitting back there put a lot of hard work into it. So again, I just want to express my appreciation for this city, for who we are, for what we are, embracing diversity and embracing the concept that, as Mahatma Gandhi taught us, that a city should be judged on how well or lack thereof you take care of the most destitute of your citizenry. So may we continue to keep a focused, keen eye on that, with results that are making a difference for humanity, for the individuals that are affected, the individuals that have been in their car for 7 years, the individuals that are trying to get up. I know there are programs missing here, that, and the other, but bringing it together to make a difference at an individual level. And so I appreciate what y'all do. Appreciate you, staff. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wenty. Okay, I'm going to close the citizens forum. I've got no more cards. And then moving on to the consent calendar. Is there anybody that wishes to pull any item for consent for discussion? I have no cards for discussion. What I would like to do is there has been some, let's see, hang on a second here. There was some concern regarding the spending money for the Isabel neighborhood plan, and I just wanted to highlight that we're going to be applying for a planning grant to facilitate the further refinement of the Isabel neighborhood plan, as we are continuing to work to bring Valley Link and to make that rail connection between the Central Valley and BART, so that hopefully can remove some of those 160,000 vehicle trips going over the Altamont every day. So we will be applying for a planning grant to do that work. So with that, do I have a motion to approve the consent calendar? Moved by Councilmember Warner, seconded by Councilmember Monroe. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? It passed unanimously. Thank you very much. And now we're going to do, as I said, we're going to do 5.01 and 5.03 first, and then we will do a 5.02 and 6.02 simultaneously. Okay. So moving on to 5.01, this is the hearing to consider the density bonuses for to the Livermore Development Code. Steve Stewart and Susan Frost.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. I am Susan Frost, Special Projects Coordinator, and this is the Density Bonus Ordinance update.
Is your mic on?
Just snug right in.
There we go. Okay.
Which way? That one? Thank you. Under state law, density bonuses are intended to provide affordable housing units while offsetting the costs of providing those units within a residential development. The state law was originally acted in 1979 and has been amended several times since then. The proposed ordinance addresses state law changes adopted in 2018, which became effective in January 1 of this year. And just to note that in Livermore, there have only been 3 projects utilizing density bonuses in the last 15 years. And 2 of those were projects that the city was a partner in. In the proposed ordinance, Table 6.2 shows the density bonus provided for very low, and moderate income projects. So for example, a residential housing project that would include 5% of the units for very low income families would be entitled to a 20% density bonus. Projects that have provided affordable units under this provision would be entitled to at least 1 development standard incentive or concession, and that's outlined in Table 6.3 of the draft ordinance. Separately, projects may also request a modification or waiver of development standards if it could be shown that it would physically preclude construction of the density bonus project. Under the proposed update, to incorporate the 2018 changes, it includes such things as expansions on the applicability of density bonuses, a land donation provision, child care facilities, condominium conversions, and modified parking standards. Regarding applicability, they have added additional categories that would be eligible for density bonuses, and that includes very low income housing for transitional foster youth, disabled veterans, and homeless persons that would get up to a 20% density bonus, and for low income students that would get up to a 35% density bonus. Under the land donation provisions, the developments could qualify for a density bonus that provide a land donation that would be at least 1 acre in size or would accommodate up to 40 units, have appropriate general plan and zoning, be served by necessary utilities and facilities, and would be located within the project boundary or within a quarter mile. There is also provisions now for child care facilities that are included within the residential projects. The density bonus provided would be equal to the square footage of the child care facilities, but there are also attendance and operational requirements associated with a child care facility under this circumstance. There is also a density bonus provisions available for apartment conversions to condominiums if moderate or low income units are provided. But note that these new units have to be provided within existing buildings. And if the original project was developed with a density bonus, it would not be eligible for an additional density bonus. Finally, there are modified parking standards available now for projects providing affordable units. Just wanted to note that these standards in the state law are not significantly different than the standards that the city already provides for multifamily projects. The primary difference is that the city does require 1 space per 4 units for guest parking. That's not necessary under the state law. On June 4th, the Planning Commission held a public hearing on the proposed ordinance and recommends that the City Council introduce the ordinance, certifying the environmental document, and approving Development Code Amendment 18-007 for the density bonus ordinance update. Thank you, and we're available for questions.
Okay. Question, Vice Mayor Carling.
So I'm just curious as to why, do you have any notion as to why we've only had 3 projects over the last 15 years that applied for the density bonuses? And do you think the changes will encourage others?
These particular changes probably will not encourage density bonus projects in Livermore. They are much more applicable to much more urbanized areas where the developers can benefit from these types of changes to the law.
Okay. And that's why people haven't used it much over the last 15 years then, for the same reason.
Yes, for similar reasons, yes.
Okay, thanks.
Councilmember Monroe.
Well, in looking over the material, I was really struck once again by what it means to be very low income, and moderate income. So I actually printed out the page, but I'm wondering if you could just sort of speak to that a little bit, or I am just always astonished at how high the income is to qualify for low income. It's
Page 251.
Thank you.
yeah.
Well, the attachment shows what are the affordable for sale prices, rental rates, and maximum income levels in the city of Livermore. These levels are determined by being within the Oakland metropolitan area. So they are, since San Francisco Bay Area is one of the most expensive places to live and has the highest salaries, it being defined as low or moderate or very low income is a lot different than in other areas of the country. It's a lot higher. So that's why they are this. These numbers are come to us from the state.
I'm sorry. I understand that.
Yeah.
What I'm trying to do is actually just. I was astonished the first time I saw these. I just thought it would be useful for others to understand what they are.
Okay.
So that was my intent of the question.
Okay. Generally, to be considered very low income, a family of 4 would be earning $58,000. For low income, a family of 4 would be earning $89,000 approximately. And to be considered median income, a family of 4 would be earning $104,000 approximately.
It is astonishing.
Yes.
Any other questions or comments for?
Yes, I have one.
Oh.
So
Councilmember Warner?
this is primarily, as you said, to update to correspond to state law changes. But in the last time we were doing the housing numbers, and I forget what the last few months, noted that we were not doing as well at the very low end of the spectrum as we could. And I asked, why. And I think Vice Mayor Carling's question kind of prompted me to think about this. Is there any more that we could do to actually encourage more at the low end of the spectrum? And that question came up the last time, I raised it the last time we spoke, but I'm not sure where we left it. Are we going to be doing anything?
So the density bonus provisions that you're hearing about today are intended to try to encourage that, but the reality here in Livermore and the East Bay is that most of the projects that move forward that include very low-income units are heavily subsidized by cities or other organizations. So the city of Livermore is actually actively involved in a number of projects. We have the Vineyard Project. We have one out here on Pacific. We have another one on our downtown site. So we're moving forward with a range of projects that will bring units online in the next couple of years for a variety of income categories. We have the Chestnut projects that are just opening up this summer. So we are really working hard to maximize the use of our resources for a variety of projects, but there's
So I guess the question is that you mentioned it's really the economics and the need for subsidies. Are there any more grants coming on the horizon with all the discussions going on at the state level that we might be able to take advantage of?
We are waiting for additional information from the governor's budget, but we do expect there to be additional resources available for both homelessness and inclusionary or subsidized housing.
To make sure that your staff is available and able to take advantage of those resources as they flow from the state government. In particular, the mayor initiated an item with staff for us to take a comprehensive look to see how we are staffed in our Housing and Human Services Division. That will return to you with some recommendations at a meeting in July. So we're trying to work at this at all levels, from the regulatory side to making sure that we're getting the money out there, to making sure that we're staffed at the right level with the right skill sets to maximize our outcomes, because we're not getting ahead on this one right now.
Okay, I'm going to open the public hearing for 5.01. I've got a card from Connie Copps. Ms. Copps?
Hi, I'm Connie Copps on Tulip Way, and the reason I went to the Planning Commission meeting on June 4th and said no on this was because it's very powerful tool, and I don't know that it would be distributed evenly throughout the community. And I've been asking a lot of questions on some areas of Livermore, and these questions never get answered. So I'm wondering how you get to really get answers, from, the land ownership. I know the city owns a lot of land around Livermore, and I just would hate to see them in the business of real estate. I think that there's some good in this, and it should maybe be brought back and looked at in a different way. But I think really before you do anything major in changing like floor area ratio type buildings, that you really sit down and take a real honest look at how it would be dispersed throughout the community to make sure that you're not maybe gentrifying an area, or even causing hardship to an area. I know sometimes when you concentrate certain populations in some projects, I know they're like sometimes tomorrow's poverty, and I want to see a Livermore without homelessness, and I do want to see improvement. But I think I think we need to clear our slate a little bit before we take on these projects. And again, that's why I went to the meeting on June 4th to say no. I do not like how certain things changed abruptly. I was not happy with how I went to the general plan and looked at it in the library, and then all of a sudden it's so different. There was something that happened in between that got by a lot of people, and that was acknowledged also by Stu Gary at one time. And I hope I don't seem like I'm trying to antagonize and say no to your good thoughts and your efforts. I just want to see it well thought out and fairly distributed. And I think when you're dealing with children, you want to put these child care services on the premises. That really adds another dimension that's pretty complicated as well. So think long and hard about these, and bring it back after you've cleared the slate on some of these questions, because they're important. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Copps. Okay, with that, I'm going to close the public hearing and bring it back to the council. Any further discussion or questions by the council? Do I have a motion to introduce an ordinance to certify the environmental document and approving the Development Code Amendment? Moved by Councilmember Warner.
Second.
Seconded by Councilmember Monroe. Any discussion on that motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? Passed unanimously. Thank you very much. Moving on to 5.03. This is the landscape maintenance districts. Move there. And this, there are some time sensitivities on this, so we wanted to bring it up at this point. This is, we conduct a public hearing for the confirmation of the annual levies for the assessments for the city landscape maintenance district. As I recall, we have over 90 of these in the city, and this is to fund the landscaping around the projects. So we have Sean Prevet.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. My name is Sean Prevette. I'm a management analyst in the Public Works Department. As you said, the city currently has 92 landscape maintenance districts organized under the Landscaping and Lighting Act of 1972. In order for us to levy assessments to pay for the maintenance of these districts, the city must conduct a public hearing every year. On June 10th, the council approved the notice of intent and adopted tonight, June 24th, as the public hearing date. Each year, staff reviews the cost, maintenance level, and long-term financial stability of the districts. Then staff recommends the level of assessment required to meet both the short-term and long-term maintenance needs of the districts. Staff has completed this process, and all the proposed assessments contained within the engineer's report are within the pre-approved caps. Now, staff is asking for the council to conduct the public hearing and adopt the resolution confirming the levy of assessments. So that concludes my presentation.
All right. Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Prevette? Okay. Well done. Answered all the questions. I'm going to open the public hearing. 5.03. I have a card from Connie Copps.
Connie Copps, Tulip Way again. Again, this is about Springtown, and at the last meeting, I, asked about landscape maintenance for the Springtown area. Not that I wanted it, but I was wondering if there was any landscape maintenance districts in the Springtown area, which I saw a couple. And when I asked that question, I was concerned about the golf course and how dry it gets. And my question was, at that time, who is responsible to keep that watered? And whose responsibility is it? And who owns what property on that? Because last year it got dry, and I'm really worried about fires. And I wrote the fire department. I never heard back from them. And then no one answered my question. The mayor had he had told you that he understood that a landscape maintenance, there was actually a form that went out offering a landscape maintenance or telling the people of Springtown that they had to pay between $20 and $80 a month for LDM if they wanted the golf course to continue. The golf course did not continue, and of course it's in sort of a limbo, as to whether it'll be a park or not. But in the interim, who is liable? And that's my question, because I need to go back to my board and say, look, this is who is liable and this is why. And I don't get direct answers from them, and I don't get direct answers from you. And I'm very concerned about this area and how we've dealt with it in the past. We need to step up our game on it because, there's a lot of good people living there. There's a lot of good land out there. I know a lot of people, look the other way to things that should be addressed. And we need to address these sooner than later. And thank you for your time.
Thank you. And as I recall, the had it been a Springtown-wide assessment, the LMD assessment for the golf course would have been $125 a year, and the community showed no interest in $125 a year. But with respect to the responsibility for the former golf course lands, as far as keeping it watered and mowed to reduce fire hazard, upon whose
The mowing
responsibility
responsibilities on the city of Livermore. The city of Livermore is the property owner. There is not a requirement to mow open space lands like that, but there is a responsibility to ultimately deal with the edges of that where it is next to the property. And city staff mows that property several times a year to keep it in compliance with fire regulations.
To reduce fire hazard. Okay, very good. Thank you. Okay, with that, that was the only card, so we're going to close the public hearing. Bringing it back, any questions or comments from the council? Do I have a motion to adopt a resolution to confirm the annual levy of assessments?
I'll move.
Moved by Vice Mayor Carling, seconded by Councilmember Kroomber. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That also passes unanimously. Thank you very much. Okay, moving on to the evening's main event. This is going to be 5.02, and as I said, we will also have holy mackerel. No, we're not going to have holy mackerel, but we have we're going to consider 5.02 and 6.02 simultaneously, because 6.02 is the resolution from the intergovernmental committee by the school district, the park district, and the city. So with that, hand it off to staff.
Good evening again, Mayor and council members. I'm Susan Frost again. This evening we will be considering the proposed tobacco retailer licensing ordinance. The proposed ordinance would add a new chapter to the Livermore Municipal Code, which would establish the requirement for a tobacco retailer license, also known as a TRL. It would include a citywide ban on the sale of flavored tobacco products, including electronic device fluids and certain electronic devices. It would ban all tobacco sales within 1,000 feet of youth-populated areas and other necessary provisions in order to implement and enforce the ordinance. Oops. Let's go back. The ordinance would require any existing or future businesses in the city that retails tobacco products to obtain a TRL. The cost of the fee for the TRL would cover the city's administrative and enforcement costs. The Livermore Police Department shall inspect the TRL businesses at least once a year, and the TRLs shall be renewed annually and are not transferable. And up here, I have Lieutenant Jason Boberg with the Livermore Police Department, who helps with conducting the inspections and decoy operations in the city. And we did conduct an operation in April, and he will provide an update on that.
Yes. Council, good evening. In response to some community concerns on April 5th of 2019, the Livermore Police Department conducted a minor decoy operation attempting 8 sales of tobacco products by minors. We found that in 50% of those attempts, tobacco products were sold to the minor decoys.
Under the ordinance, all flavored tobacco products are prohibited, and also electronic smoking devices and fluids are prohibited except under the criteria listed here, and that is that the device is a new tobacco product as defined under the Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act. It requires a pre-market review by the Federal Drug Administration, and it has the pre-market review order. And Jason, I'll call it, the city attorney, can provide some more details on that if you would like.
Just one point of clarification. The definition of new tobacco product is actually in the Family Smoking Prevention and Tobacco Control Act of 2009.
The ordinance would ban the sale of all tobacco products within 1,000 feet of youth-populated areas as defined in the ordinance, and this generally includes all schools, parks, commercial daycare centers, anywhere where youth are known to congregate. These uses would become non-conforming uses as regulated by the city's development code. This would allow the uses to continue but not expand. If the retail use ceases for 180 days or more, it could not be reestablished, and they are still required to obtain a valid TRL. This map shows the existing tobacco retailers within the community. There are 71 existing retailers. The blue area shows the 1,000-foot buffer around schools, parks, and daycare centers. That would affect, that buffer area would affect 41 retailers in the city. Just a quick review of existing federal, state, and local laws. Prior to 2009, tobacco products were largely unregulated. In 2009, the federal government did adopt the Smoking Prevention and Tobacco Control Act. This act regulates the manufacturing, marketing, and sale of tobacco products and is implemented under the FDA. It includes a number of requirements relating to advertising of tobacco products, bans the use of characterizing flavors, except for menthol, in cigarettes, bans outdoor advertising within 1,000 feet of schools or playgrounds, and establishes 18 as the minimum age to purchase tobacco products. In 1994, the state adopted the Stop Tobacco Access to Kids Enforcement Act, the STAKE Act, and this was a program to decrease sales to youth under 18 to less than 20% of their purchase attempts, and to also conduct regular decoy or sting operations. Statewide, they have generally met this reduction target. However, while the sales of cigarettes have gone down, the sales of e-cigarettes or electronic devices has increased. In 2016, the state raised the minimum age to purchase tobacco to 21, but includes an exclusion for active military personnel, which leaves the age at 18. And current city ordinances address smoking in public places, both indoors and outdoors, and smoking at places of employment. And just some quick statistics. There are lots of statistics out there relating to the use of tobacco by adults and by youth, various types of tobacco products. But generally, between 2011 and 2017, the use of tobacco products has decreased, but the use of e-cigarettes and the electronic devices has increased, particularly for high school students and middle school students.
I think there are some recent statistics that just came out last month that showed high school student usage as in some areas is up to as high as 20%. You have 11.7 here. It's just
That's a nationwide average.
Yeah.
Yes.
So it's 11.7 in 2017, but in less than 2 years, it's almost doubled to 20%.
156 California cities and counties have what are considered to be strong TLR ordinances. A strong ordinance requires that the retailers obtain a license. The fees are high enough to fund the administration and enforcement of the license. It coordinates the regulations so that a violation of any other local, state, or federal tobacco regulations violates the ordinance, and has a financial deterrent through fines and penalties, including suspension and revocation of the license. Other Alameda County cities which have what are considered to be strong TRL ordinances are listed there. The city's proposed ordinance follows these ordinances closely, but is mostly patterned or modeled after the ordinances adopted in San Francisco and Sacramento. On June 19th, we held an informational meeting for the tobacco retailers in the community. We did send out notices to all 71 retailers. Unfortunately, it was lightly attended with only four people attending. The majority of the comments related to the proposed ban on flavored tobacco products, particularly the electronic devices and fluids. The attendees were very adamant that they do not sell to minors and are very diligent about checking IDs, and that the city should concentrate its efforts more on businesses that sell to minors and increase the penalties in those cases. A couple of questions that did come out of the meeting with the retailers. First was, has the city considered the financial impact to businesses that may be forced to close as early as August? such things as loss of jobs and what to do with their inventory and the leases that they have. And another question was, does the definition of tobacco retailer include wholesalers? We do have a couple of wholesalers in the community. And per the city attorney, the definition of a tobacco retailer does include wholesalers and distributors, even if they do not have an on-site retail sales. And regarding the first questions, we have not conducted any specific studies that look at the financial impact of the ordinance.
And in your supplemental memorandum before you this evening contains alternative language to narrow the definition of tobacco retailer and tobacco retailing to just those businesses that do sell to consumers, should you be so inclined.
So staff is recommending that the City Council introduce the ordinance that was provided this evening in the supplemental memorandum and adopt the municipal code amendment that would create the new chapter in the municipal code. If the City Council adopts the ordinance this evening, staff will return with the proposed fee at a future meeting prior to the effective date of the ordinance.
So again, the process before this evening, your first step is to consider comments and see whether you want to introduce the ordinance. If so, we will return to you for a second reading. And if it was adopted at that point, it would go into effect within 30 days. I believe that concludes
the presentation. Thank you.
Okay. Are we going to cover 6.02 as well at this point, or how do we want to do that? That we can cover both simultaneously.
All right. While Deputy City Manager Christine Martin is getting the staff report up there, essentially 602 includes a resolution from your intergovernmental committee, which is made up of members of the City of Livermore Council and the Board of Directors of LARPD, the Board of Directors of the school district. And essentially that resolution is included in your packet and encourages specific actions by each of the entities there. So, Christine.
Thank you for pinch hitting there, Mr. City Manager. I'm Christine Martin, your Deputy City Manager. And item 6.02 is a resolution that is a recommendation from the Intergovernmental Committee, which is comprised of LARPD Board, and the school district board and our representatives from the city council. So they have unanimously recommended to their respective boards, you and the other two boards, to adopt this resolution, which is supporting a tobacco-free and vaping-free schools and community. The resolution asks that the city consider comprehensive legislation to address tobacco retailing and vaping devices, which you are doing here this evening with item 5.2. And the third is to support civic and social service and government agencies in their legislative efforts and campaigns to protect the health of an entire generation by preventing them from becoming exposed to nicotine and other harmful substances. So with that, staff is available for any questions that you may have on this resolution.
Okay, any questions about the joint resolution? Okay, any questions for staff on 5.02 at this point? Okay, with that, adding to the stack. Okay, so we have just under 40 cards here. So, well, I want to make sure everybody gets heard. This is obviously a very important issue. This is about healthy communities. So what I'd like to do is ask that you keep your comments to 3 minutes or less, and that way everybody has the same amount of time. We don't allow, I want everybody to feel comfortable speaking tonight, so I don't want anyone to feel intimidated. So if you agree with someone, just raise your hand, and that way the speaker does not see anybody behind him. We, the council, can see the disposition of the audience, but it doesn't intimidate the speaker. So there's no booing, and equal time. There's no applause either. So it moves it along a little bit. Thank you very much for your comment. No, we're not going to allow that either. That didn't work very well either. If you agree, simply raise your hand. If you don't, sit there politely, and everybody will have the same opportunity to be heard and address your comments to the council, because we're the ones making the decision. And with that, I'm going to open the public comment period. And if you agree with somebody, if you think they actually said it a little bit better than you did, just say, hey, I agree with the previous speaker. And it'll move this along. But I want to make sure that everybody has an opportunity to speak. So with that, we have Michael Robran, Amy Pack, and Mary Perner. Michael.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Thanks for the opportunity to voice this concern. I can discuss ad nauseum the perceived potential benefits of opting to use e-cigarettes over conventional burning cigarettes. This is, however, something I feel falls on deaf ears, given the nature of concerns and research I've done into why a ban may come into effect. It is clear, and I'm in complete agreement, that minors should not have the ability to access and participate in the use of nicotine or tobacco. I want to make that very clear. With that being said, as a consenting 32-year-old adult who is a user of e-cigarettes and former smoker, I have seen a quality of life improvement in my already indisputable bad decision to smoke. A sweeping measure to ban e-cigarettes and flavored nicotine liquid is a very drastic and commerce-disrupting action. I have no contact with owners or operators of e-cigarette or nicotine liquid making providers. This is an obvious assumption I'm making for the sake of disclosure. I'm concerned that as a consenting adult, that my options to choose between conventional cigarettes, which are without any doubt the single most harmful thing you can purchase, and e-cigarettes may very, very well be as bad. I found personally my quality of life is better after using them, and my health. The actions of youth and adults under 21 to use e-cigarettes is a clear mistake on their part, and whoever is allowing them to obtain and use them is woefully negligent and clearly does not understand the potential repercussions and chain of events that have led us here today. However, I do not believe the burden of failure should lie on an entire community of e-cigarette users and retailers who abide by the laws in the state of California and the regulations of the city of Livermore. The statistics of e-cigarette users who are underage is indisputably damning evidence that the enforcement is woefully underperforming. I'm sorry. I would hope that we could better utilize our resources to enforce laws rather than blanket regulate something that is legally available to adults over 21. I have witnessed firsthand retailers turning away those unable to furnish identification and refusing sale to adults who are furnishing that they are purchasing it from minors. Thank you.
Thank you. Amy Pack, Mary Perner, Brian Davis.
Good evening. Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council, staff, my name is Amy Pack. I live in Selby Lane here in Livermore. I am here tonight as a Livermore resident, a proud Livermore resident, a mother, a grandmother. I'm also here as a volunteer with the American Heart Association. The American Heart Association supports the citywide tobacco retail licensing ordinance to ensure that tobacco retailers do not sell tobacco products to young people and to prohibit the sale of flavored tobacco products in the city of Livermore, including menthol cigarettes, which target youth. Additionally, we support creating a minimum package size and minimum price for tobacco products, as well as prohibiting the sale of tobacco in pharmacies or near child-sensitive areas. The best way to prevent tobacco-related illness and death is to keep youth from starting to smoke in the first place. On a personal note, I lost my grandfather to lung cancer, very painful, slow death. My mother at age 57 had colon cancer. My dad at age 70 died of heart disease, which was not in our family history. All three of them started smoking as teens. They didn't know then what we all know now. The tobacco industry targets young people in vulnerable communities with flavored tobacco products. Flavors including grape, menthol, cotton candy, bubblegum, and gummy bears. Gummy bears? They mask the harsh taste of tobacco and are highly appealing to our youth, encouraging young smokers. We know that 4 out of 5 kids who have used tobacco started with a flavored product. The less dangerous tobacco seems to youth, the more likely they are to use it. Tobacco companies have everything to gain from addicting young people, given research showing that the earlier a person starts using tobacco, the higher the risk of addiction and the harder it is to quit. According to California Healthy Kids Survey results from Livermore Valley Joint Unified School District 2017-2018, 72% of 11th graders believe that it is either very or fairly easy to obtain e-cigarettes or vaping devices. 52% of 11th graders, over half, believe that it is either very or fairly easy to obtain cigarettes. Almost 1 in 3 11th graders have used electronic cigarettes, indicating a rapidly growing trend. 38% of our 11th graders perceive little or no harm in using e-cigarettes compared to smoking cigarettes. We know that when tobacco is cheap and pack sizes are small, tobacco products are more affordable for youth to buy. Is that it?
Good. Finish your train of thought.
I'm almost done.
Okay. Please finish.
In Alameda County, over 77% of tobacco retailers near schools sell little cigars for less than $1, cheaper than the price of a candy bar. Unfortunately, cheap prices for tobacco products are most available in low-income communities of color and communities which have high proportions of school-aged youth, like Livermore. Establishing a minimum price for the sale of tobacco products is an effective strategy for reducing smoking rates and tobacco-related disparities. Strong tobacco retail licensing laws can protect youth from accessing flavored and cheap tobacco products and are crucial to preventing a lifetime of tobacco addiction. I'm hopeful, as our elected representatives of this great community, that you won't hesitate to do the right thing. By amending our municipal code, you'll be joining the cities that were mentioned earlier and the counties that were mentioned earlier and many others by putting the health and lives of our children before tobacco industry profits, ensuring that all of Livermore's children get to have the healthy and prosperous life they deserve.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mary Perner, Brian Davis, Serena Chin.
Good evening, Mayor Marchand, council members and staff. My name is Mary Perner from Kerrigan Common, a couple blocks over. I've been a Livermore resident for 31 years. For much of that time, I've been an educator and am still working with kids and young people. Thank you for allowing me a few minutes to join many friends who have spoken in support of measures to secure our city's children from flavored nicotine products. In pursuit of this effort, I have a personal story. Back in the early 80s, my first job out of grad school was as the senior therapist for a residential drug and alcohol treatment program. Most of the program's clients were court referred. They had been addicted to heroin, cocaine, methamphetamines, alcohol, or at times a combination of substances. Some of them sincerely wanted to clean up their lives. They worked hard to utilize our treatment program and to follow the appropriate 12-step programs. Unfortunately, I noticed no matter how many months they had been clean and sober, no matter what steps they had taken to change their lives, none of them stopped smoking. Not one. We discussed this in individual and group therapy. To a man, they agreed that tobacco addiction was much harder to quit than any of the other substances they'd been using. They didn't think they could do it. The vaping products under discussion tonight contain several times more nicotine than normal cigarettes. They are flavored and packaged to attract and addict our children. Once kids are hooked, we're looking at a new generation of nicotine addicts with a high level of health risks and the added financial burden for them and their families. I ask you, council members, to enact the most stringent regulations possible against vaping products and any Livermore business people who sell these products to underage youth. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Ms. Perner. Brian Davis, Serena Chen, Adriana Del Cid.
Good evening, council members. My name is Brian Davis, and I'm a member of the Alameda County Tobacco Control Coalition. This image is from a yearbook of a high school in Alameda County that was distributed to the students last month. In terms of the opinions it captured, it could have been from any high school in the country. Students are asked, "Is it cool to Juul?" A sophomore answers, "I think it would be fine. I mean, how bad could it be?" A junior says, "I think everyone should do it every day. It's great, just the best. You could even say amazing." You should all take a look at this tonight before you deliberate. This is really all you need to see to understand just how pervasive these Juul pods are in high schools. Juul is an everyday part of the lives of 16 and 17-year-olds to the extent that they have no concern about telling a yearbook contributor that Juul is okay or even amazing and have their picture taken doing so. Well, Juul is not okay or cool or amazing for teenagers who already have challenging lives and now have to deal with nicotine addiction as well. On behalf of my niece's teenage children who live here in Livermore, please take this information into consideration. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Davis. Thank you. Serena Chen, Adriana Del Cid, Brent Seiler.
Good evening, Mayor Marchand and members of the council. My name is Serena Chen, and I've been a member of the Alameda County Tobacco Control Coalition since 1991. I first stood before the Livermore City Council in 1994, 25 years ago, when Livermore joined with the 4 other cities in the Tri-Valley to adapt what was then the cutting edge of smoke-free protections, prohibiting smoking in all restaurants and workplaces. That was cutting edge. It still is in other states. And all 5 cities in the Tri-Valley voted that same night. It was great. At that time, smoking was still allowed in people's workplaces and public places in the state of California. But because of Tri-Cities, because of all the other cities that banned smoking all over the state, our California legislature was able to then pass the first statewide smoke-free ordinance law. That was in 1995. But it took every city standing up and saying, this is what we want, for our state legislature to have the ability to withstand all the tobacco lobbyists. Many of our current state constitutional officers I remember from those days because they were local city council members who pushed for smoke-free laws in their cities. These people include our treasurer, Fiona Ma. They include our Secretary of State, Alex Padilla, and our governor, Gavin Newsom. All 3 of them were advocates, the champions of smoke-free laws on their city councils. And look where that's taken them. Another bonus for having been around such a long time is to have seen, when I first started, the smoking rate in the state of California at 24% dropped to 11 and 12%. And in Alameda County, it dropped a lot faster than the rest of the state. Why was that? Because cities like Livermore and other cities in Alameda County passed these laws. It was great to see the smoking rate drop. It was great to see the youth smoking rate drop every single year during those years we've been working in tobacco control until 2 years ago, when a new e-cigarette product was introduced. And you've seen the statistics. And it's like that scene in Godfather, right, where you think now that you're done, they grab you back in, but it's not funny. It's basically something that will addict the youth right now and the youth in the next generation. I work with high school students, and this is the first time that I've had high school students come up to me and say, I want to quit using Juuls. I want to quit vaping. All these years, no high school student would have the temerity to say, I want to quit smoking because it's too cool. They wouldn't say that. So this is a real serious challenge. And tonight, this city has an opportunity to, again, be at the cutting edge and show to the rest of the state and the rest of the country that we will take a stand for our children's health and our children's lungs. Thank you.
Thank you. Adriana Del Cid, Brent Seiler, Davida Happ.
Hello, my name is Adriana Del Cid, and I'm a student at Las Positas College participating in a substance-free group called at Las Positas known as APACHAT. Coming from a family where smoking was seen as a common habit that was picked up from childhood, it concerns me to witness vape pens becoming a new tobacco trend that could become the next habit that is picked up from an early age. Even if peer pressure was taken out of the equation, the flavors alone are enough to cause anyone to crave using these vape pens after smelling the sweet smell of fruity Sour Patch or sweet nostalgia of catching a whiff of cotton candy. The belief that a vape pen released from these tobacco products is actually a harmless water vapor is far too common among our population. Seeing students vaping and smoking tobacco products on a regular basis on my campus is an important issue that I believe should be addressed primarily for the health of these students and others, but also to better prepare students to transfer to four-year institutions or other workplaces where they will likely be expected to abide by 100% smoke-free policies. One way that I believe can decrease the likelihood of these products to become the next health epidemic for our developing youth is to ban the sale of flavored tobacco products and electronic smoking devices altogether in the city. By doing this, these products will become less accessible and therefore less appealing due to lack of convenience for youth and other residents of the city of Livermore who are either curious or already using tobacco products. This city is already known for holding some of the nation's greatest talent and expertise, so let's strive to continue leading the way by being the second city to ban electronic smoking devices. Thank you.
Thank you. Brent Seiler, Davida Happ, I'm sorry if I mispronounced your name, and Cyrus Melchizedek.
Good evening, Council. Last time I was up here, I said I was all in favor of keeping nicotine out of the hands of children. And, you know, it's one that, you know, I said I use a Juul. I use it to stop smoking. This week, I went from 6% to 3%, and then I'll go from 3%, and I'll be done. It's taken me almost a year to get there, but I'll get there. When I look through at what they're trying to do, what I don't see is the enforcement side of it. Right now, there's nothing written as far as, okay, if you pass this, half of those businesses are going to go out. It's going to wreck some people's lives because they have their livelihood put into it. There's no way to back them out of their business. I would like to see a plan that would give people a chance to back out of their inventory, get it to other places so they're not financially hit that hard. When you look at the kids, we're going to have some entrepreneurs out there. If you ban both the device that legal adults can buy, as well as the flavored nicotine, which I'm in favor of, then you're going to get some young kids in high school, because they have their license, they're going to drive to Dublin, Pleasanton, someplace else, they're going to buy it and they're going to come back here and sell it. How would that be handled within the city? What will law enforcement do if they see kids down at the new Stockman Park vaping? What is their job? Will they actually even approach a young child, a teenager, to see if they're of age to be able to do it? So I don't see any enforcement side of it in what's being proposed. All I'm seeing is this is bad. It's kind of like the bullet and gun scenario. Get rid of the bullets, people will give their guns up. It doesn't work that way, okay? You had a soft home run that you could have hit and just said, we're going to get rid of the flavored tobaccos. And I think everybody was there. It'd been real easy. Boom, done. But then you take where you're going to say, we're going to get rid of the electronic devices that adults can make a choice on what they want to do with their life. And now you're saying, not in our town. Well, if we're already that close, let's just ban smoking altogether in Livermore. Period. No cigarettes sold. But while we're there, let's go to alcohol, because I'm sure if we speak to the officer, there's a lot of kids. I got phone calls at 1:30 in the morning where my kids were doing something wrong and alcohol was involved. So where do we stop at? Where does government stop at? Again, I'm for taking the flavor out, but let's not overreach what we're doing as a governing body and go too far with it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Seiler. Devita, I'm not even going to attempt your last name.
I just have bad handwriting, I guess. Hart.
Oh.
Devita Hart.
What? No,
I know.
sorry. Must be somebody else. Art, thank
That's
you.
okay. I'm a concerned mother in Livermore, and being educated on this new product is disturbing to me, that it's so accessible to kids. I'm subbing in the schools right now, and it's very common for kids to have this product and one of the classes I caught someone and they were trying to be sly about it, but it's now that I'm educated on it, I know what to look for. And so it's not really very uncommon anymore. And I just remember telling my daughter stories about how when I was a kid, people smoked in restaurants. There were vending machines for cigarettes. And that really wasn't that long ago. And now I was really proud to have her in a time where we don't really see people smoke on the streets anymore. It's just not socially acceptable anymore because we know it's bad. It's bad for us. It's not a good habit. It kills people. And now this is something new that has kind of resurged, and that concerns me because I don't want her to grow up with that as an acceptable alternative. It's not. It's nicotine. It's smoking, basically. And so I appreciate all the information people have here, and I just think people need to be more educated. And the kids think it's a healthy alternative, and it's not. So I just appreciate, again, the people that come up that have more information, and just hope that you can support these limits, the TRL. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hart. Cyrus Melchizedek, Stefan Didak, Anastasia Deretta.
Mr. Mayor, people of the council, my name is Cyrus Malekzadeh. I don't expect you to remember the spelling of my last name, but I do want you guys to hear my story. I hope you remember that. I started smoking at the age, excuse me as I go through puberty. I started smoking at the age of 14. At the age of 25, I made a decision, my own decision, to switch to electronic cigarettes. Due to the fact that they offered flavors besides fire, such as cotton candy, banana, and gummy bears, and judging by the way my shirt stretches, you know I like all those. That was the enticing part. As an adult, I can make these choices. Again, I'm 32 years old. So I ask, why must everybody be punished? Why must I suffer due to the negligence of parents, due to rebellious children? And I know how much of a handful rebellious children can be because I started smoking at the age of 14, and I regret it. But luckily for me, there is an alternative. Why are my choices being made for me? Why in a city that is very proud of its wineries and its alcohol, can I not vape something I like the flavor of at the age of 32? Why can't I make that decision as an adult? I have offered multiple times to a lot of the opposition in the past to consult and come up with a real resolution, something to actually punish these people who are breaking our rules and our laws. Same punishments as children with alcohol would face, but nothing. We are treated like big tobacco, and that's not the case. I apologize, I'm a little emotional here.
It's okay, we're friendly up here.
I hope so. My friend, my childhood friend, Private Benjamin Tollefson, died in Iraq in 2008, December 31st, 2008, fighting for our freedoms, for our rights to choose. New Year's Eve will never be the same again. So I ask you to make the right choice. I ask you to help us red-blooded Americans keep our freedoms of choice. I ask you, don't make me a casualty on the war on smoking. Thank you.
Thank you. Stefan Didak, Anastasia Doretta, Mark Gordon.
Good evening, council members. My name is Stefan Didak, and I am with THR Policy. I'm here to oppose the prohibition of the sale of flavored vapor products because while we applaud the efforts to reduce smoking and protect minors, it seems bizarre to ban products that are instrumental in getting and keeping adults off of smoking. Banning flavored vapor products under the guise of protecting minors is a lose-lose proposition. Sales to those under the age of 21 are already prohibited and should be enforced. I think we can also agree that you cannot legislate morality, and prohibition never works. While the paid proponents of these types of policies will have you believe that vapor is a gateway to smoking, they hide from you that the CDC's own statistics show that there's a consistent decline in youth smoking rates. When it comes to youth vaping rates, once you take out all the minors that are using cannabis and take out all the 18-year-olds who in their regions are of legal age and their respective states, and you take out the experimental puff, you end up with a rate less than 1%. While we too prefer to see that this should be 0%, it seems misleading to convey the fear of an epidemic and influence policymakers to enact laws that essentially amount to nothing more than a protection act for the sale of deadly combustible cigarettes. Flavored vapor products in adult use and the adult users that use them do not deserve to be casualties of a war on smoking that intentionally disregards the public health advantages provided by these smoke-free products. Millions of Americans have quit smoking thanks to these products, and tens of thousands of Californians have chosen to switch to products that produce neither tar or smoke, which are the primary causes of smoking-related disease. More data should be examined to make an informed decision before enacting a policy that is not economically sensible and will not lead to limiting use amongst minors. I mean, after all, limiting supply does not limit demand. I urge you to very carefully weigh the unintended consequences of removing less harmful products from the market when it explicitly protects the sale of cigarettes. That said, and thank you very much for actually allowing 3 minutes instead of 2 minutes. I am pretty sure that if city staff is willing to sit with the tobacco retailers and actually hammer out something that will really protect minors, like, for example, scanners that are hooked up to their point-of-sale systems that will really protect accidental sales to minors, I'm pretty sure everybody will do that. Be a scalpel, not a hammer. Thank you very much for your consideration.
Thank you, Mr. Didak. Anastasio Doretta, Mark Gordon, Alex Gould. Anastasia Doretta, Mark Gordon, Alex Gould. Used to be Alex.
My name is Alex. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to speak before you. I just want to say that before, obviously there was sting operations here in Livermore, and a minor decoy was sent to purchase tobacco products. And also that minor decoy was sent to purchase alcohol products. 5 businesses sold alcohol to the minor decoy. We know that alcohol causes divorce. It breaks families apart. It causes accidents, DUI. It kills people. Also, when you get your prescription in the pharmacy, it says, do not take alcohol with this. Where does on those pharmacy labels say, do not vape? If you're taking these medications. So if we are concerned about our minors in our community, let's ban all cigarettes, all alcohol, and all tobacco products together. But how is this going to help? How are you going to stop the minors from purchasing it online? Because Chinese companies are selling this online, European companies are selling it online, or the next town over. Recently, San Francisco passed this law where they cannot purchase any electronic devices or flavored tobacco. According to some of the suppliers or wholesalers, the sales in Daly City have doubled because everybody's going over there. I also know minors that goes out of state to Las Vegas where the age limit is 18, and they spend hundreds of dollars on vape products and they bring it back into the city. So how is this gonna stop minors from vaping? Also, there are businesses here in Livermore that absolutely will not sell to minors. I'm the owner of one of those businesses, Vaporlays in Livermore, California. Every single customer that walks in there, we ID them. Even some of our regular customers that walks in there, we ID them every single day. Expired IDs, even if they're 50 years old, we do not take it. They have to go home, get a passport or another form of state or government-issued ID that we can before we sell it to them. Every day, even on our slowest day that we do probably $50 or $100, we and my employees, I have 4 employees at the store, they have turned these minors away. So before you guys make a decision, I highly ask that you consider businesses like mine and punish the businesses that are actually selling to minors. Hit them with a heavy penalty so they won't be able to sell in the future. Give them a $10,000 fine or $20,000 fine so they won't be able to sell. And also, there was an issue about nicotine level. We have a lot of, all of our juices, they come in 0 milligram of nicotine. There is no nicotine in there. And a lot of our customers are vaping that. And many of our customers have quit vaping and tobacco products altogether because with vaping, you have a choice of lowering your nicotine level. They come in 0 milligram, 3 milligram, and 3 milligram, 6 milligrams. If they start with 6, they can transition to a 3. And from 3, they can transition into a 0. And eventually, they quit. And at least 20 of my customers have come in, and they have thanked me in person that they finally gave up vaping and smoking cigarettes altogether due to this process.
Thank you, Mr. Gull. Thank you. Evan Branning, Randy Yang, Audrey Abadilla. Sorry.
Hi, my name is Mark Gordon. I represent the Cave Downtown. Thank you for giving me time. The Cave Downtown is a cigar store and lounge with a 21 and over policy. No one comes through the door more than a few feet before they are ID'd and asked to leave. We sell a product for adults, to adults. You're looking at a flavor ban that includes all tobacco products, including handmade cigars, pipe tobaccos, which have been around for hundreds of years and are perfectly legal products for adults to consume. Being lumped in, we are now becoming collateral damage because of what is perceived as a youth vaping epidemic. Please look at exempting premium tobacco products from your ordinance.
Thank you, Mr. Gordon. Is Anastasia Doretta? Anastasia Doretta? Evan Branning, Randy Yang, and Audrey Abadilla.
Good evening, Mayor, Council, and staff. Thank you very much for letting me speak. My name is Evan Branning. I'm here today as a County Public Health Commissioner, as well as a teacher. It is not often I get to say the title that I'm a County Health Commissioner in front of you, because I need to have the approval of that body before I can. The Alameda County Public Health Commission approved support for tobacco retail licenses, as well as the ban of flavored products. The reason for that is they saw the effect it is having on youth throughout the state, throughout the county, and in our cities. This ordinance that you are considering is of vital importance. It will give other cities an opportunity to look at the leadership that you have and will allow this to expand. The opponents of this ordinance have laid out the reasons why it is so important. It is important that Livermore acts because we cannot allow youth to have access to these products. When Livermore acts, other cities will also follow. They are watching. It will make it so it is harder for them to get it throughout the county, throughout the region, and eventually the state. It will also do nothing to prevent choice. There is nothing in this bill that limits the ability to use flavored products. There is nothing in it that prevents people from smoking them. There is nothing in it that will stop people from choosing to vape if that is their choice. All it does is prevents the sale of these products. There is access to them, as has been mentioned, for adults. If they choose to get them, they will be able to find a way. As a teacher, I want to say that this is absolutely an epidemic. There are the issues that we see that are obvious of the increase in vaping use amongst teenagers. But the things you see only as a teacher are the students who refuse to use the bathroom because they do not vape and they do not want to be exposed to that. You do not see the amount of disruption to class time that happens every day for students arriving late because between every period of the day, they need to stop, go to the bathroom and vape. Students who can't make it through a single class without having to take a break to go and vape. This is an addiction that is being peddled on our youth. It is an attempt to hook kids as early as possible that we have flavors like Fruit Loops and gummy bears. My students think they're slick when they say, "Oh, did you try that new flavor of cereal or whatever it is?" I know what they're talking about, and I hear it all the time. It is absolutely a problem. This is an epidemic amongst young people. It is worse than the reporting says. And while I'm speaking to you just on my anecdotal experience, I will say this is something that the city can act on, the city should act on, and it is something that will have an effect not just in Livermore, but throughout the region. This is important, and I thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Branning. Randy Yang, Audrey Abadilla, Heather Hammer.
Good evening. My name is Randy Wong, and I'm the local tobacco prevention director at the nonprofit Breathe California. We are part of the Alameda County Tobacco Control Coalition and also part of the Asian Pacific Islander Coalition for Health Against Tobacco. I'd like to start by mentioning how tobacco use is still the #1 preventable cause of death in the United States, killing approximately 500,000 Americans every year. And also, in part, it's so destructive because nicotine is such a powerful, addictive drug. Breathe California runs some quit smoking groups around the Bay Area. And one thing that people frequently tell us is that they've been able to kick lots of other different kinds of drugs. But for some reason, nicotine is particularly powerful and keeps them smoking. And tonight, we're here to talk about proposed ordinance really to focus on the issue of youth smoking prevention. Thanks to the long-term efforts of teachers, parents, and community leaders, we all know that smoking rates among youth of regular cigarettes have been declining, and as of a couple years ago, those rates were about 4% or so. But also, the vaping rates, the e-cigarette use rates, have really been steadily climbing. I know we've heard lots of different estimates. You know, a couple years ago, that rate in California was 9%, so double the regular cigarette smoking rate. There have been more estimates, you know, kind of more recently, school district by school district. And in the Bay Area, we see a lot of those rates for a lot of high school districts are in the 20-something percent. And in the Livermore Valley Unified School District among 11th graders, that current estimate, the most recent estimate of ever use of e-cigarettes is 30%. So for some reason, e-cigarettes have hit the Bay Area particularly hard, and they've hit Livermore even harder, it seems. These flavors are really a big part of it. I'd like to just read a bit of a letter that a student who's a 9th grader from Granada High School, and our coalition has several of these letters. Would just like to say that teens and even younger kids that are lured to flavored vapes, they have over 15,500 flavors like cotton candy, bubblegum, tutti frutti, and strawberry. Many of these teens are addicted to the nicotine in these vape products, and the amount of nicotine in these products are insanely high. In part, this is due to a lack of regulation for e-cigarettes. These products really haven't been cleared by the FDA for use, and that's in part why I think you're considering legislation tonight. I'd like to close just by mentioning one statistic that for every adult smoker who claims to switch 80 or 2 busloads of youth also might transition to start to smoke. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wong. Audrey Abadilla, Anastasia Doretta, Heather Hammer.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council, and City staff. My name is Audrey Bedelia. I am a program manager at Breathe California, as well as a member of the Alameda County Tobacco Control Coalition. Through my work over the last 4+ years in tobacco education, a profession that was prompted by the personal loss of my uncle and my father to tobacco-related diseases, I've witnessed firsthand the evolution and spread of the vaping epidemic within the schools and local communities. One thing has become increasingly clear. E-cigarette companies have stolen a page from the playbook of big tobacco, and their tactics of hooking a new generation of nicotine addicts is working, as evidenced by the data presented to us earlier today. From the incorporation of fruit and candy flavored products, to targeted marketing schemes, to Juul offering tens of thousands of dollars to school to implement their tobacco education, to contributing $7.5 million to Meharry University to conduct an unbiased research on their products. As adults, we've seen this story before. So who are they fooling? Evidently, over 3.6 million kids around the nation, including many here in Livermore. Medical experts, public health advocates, and residents of this community agree that it's up to local governments to step up and do what the FDA has yet to do. Help reduce youth access to Big Tobacco 2.0. Protect children by restricting the sale of harmful flavored tobacco products, reduce access to these cheap products sold at youth's price point, and prevent the unregulated nicotine delivery devices from getting into the hands of our kids. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, Heather Hammer, Janelle Gladen, Mike Frank.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. My name is Heather Hammer. I'm a former teacher at Livermore High School, and I'm presently a minister in the United Methodist Church. As a parent, teacher, and pastor, I see differences in young people. And one of the major differences is whether they're successful and whether they feel good about themselves. And in my observation, addiction is one of the major differences in whether a young person feels successful or not. Addiction to alcohol and drugs, cigarettes, or now a new epidemic of electronic cigarettes and vaping devices. Just yesterday at church, a high school student named vaping as the first problem in high school that he could think of. He could have named climate change or teen suicide or a number of other very serious problems, but he named vaping. He was one who called it a problem. Many teens don't know that it's a problem. So I urge you to pass this ordinance that at least limits this problem and allows our young people in Livermore to aim for success. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hammer. Janelle Gladen, Mike Frank.
Hi, council members and staff. My name is Janelle Gladen. I'm a co-founder of Flavors Hook Kids Livermore, and I'm here to submit to you some community concern cards our group was able to have citizens of Livermore sign. There's approximately 541 cards here. These are all Livermore residents. About a quarter of them are students. Our group went around Livermore asking people if they were concerned about the youth epidemic in our community, and this was the response. My personal experience, when I went to the farmer's market, I had about a 99.9% positive response rate. The 0.1% were people that didn't understand what we were trying to accomplish here in Livermore with the ban, or they were current vapors, adult vapors generally. One little story I wanted to share was when I was talking to some youth at the farmer's market, I approached a group of about 3 or 4 teenagers, probably young high schoolers, and one girl told me, "Yeah, you guys really need to be doing something about this." She said that all of her friends are getting their supplies in Livermore, and it just kind of reinforced what we were doing here. In my heart, I felt like, okay, we are on the right path. We need to protect our children because they're actually asking us to do that for them. So I wanted to respectfully submit these cards to the City Council.
Hand those to Lieutenant Boberg.
In addition, I believe you have all received support letters from various organizations, and I just wanted to read off the names of them. Some of them are here, some of them are not. The African American Tobacco Group Leadership Council, the Alameda County Public Health Commission, the Alameda County Tobacco Control Coalition, the American Cancer Society, Cancer Action Network, the American Lung Association in California, Americans for Non-Smokers' Rights, Breathe California, Campaign for Tobacco-Free Kids, the Livermore Valley Joint Unified School District, the Board of Education, PAVE, which stands for Parents Against Vape and E-Cigarettes. That's another national group. And then, as you mentioned earlier, the Intergovernmental Committee and Las Positas College all support strong model policies to prohibit the sale of flavored tobacco. So I wanted to submit that to you also. Thank you for your time.
Thank you as well. Thank you very much. Mike Frank, Christy Wong, Paula Campbell. Mr. Frank.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, council members. My name is Mike Frank. I'm a resident of Livermore. I live here, raising my family here. I work in Livermore. My children go to school here. I want to say I agree with Janelle. I can keep it short. I just want to thank you for considering this resolution. I would urge you to approve it. I think that approving it would show that our community values the safety and health of our children over the inconvenience it would pose to some adults who would choose to keep vaping. I'd also point out that whether or not you think it's a parenting issue, whether or not your children vape, it's something that is an epidemic. It affects all the kids in at least the middle schools and high schools in Livermore. When you hear your kids come home and say that the doors to the bathrooms were locked at lunch because the teachers were so tired of going in there to try to clear out the vapors, they just locked the doors. My first thought was, if they locked the doors at lunch where I work, how long would it take for the adults to say that's not going to happen? There's no way we'd put up with it. Yet we're putting up with it for our kids, and that just doesn't seem fair. I think that this moment that Livermore has to take a leadership role on this policy is amazing. And I keep thinking about some young families potentially moving into the Tri-Valley and thinking about where to live. And what an amazing example it would be for them when they're looking at all the cities they could live in to think, hey, there's Livermore. They just passed this resolution. They clearly value families and children. That would be a great place for a young family to come in and raise their kids, see them all the way through school like I'm doing, stay and work there and be part of the community. So I urge you, and I thank you for considering it, and I urge you to approve this resolution. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Frank. Christy Wong, Paula Campbell, and last call for Anastasia Doretta. Ms. Wong.
Good evening. I'm Christy Wong, a parent of 2 high school students in Livermore. These are flavored tobacco products confiscated from students at one high school in Livermore in one school year, the one that just ended a couple weeks ago. This was from one high school. Studies show that 74% of these products were purchased at a physical retail location. As I believe Lieutenant Boberg reported earlier, a minor decoy operation conducted by the Livermore Police found that 50% of the businesses included in the sting sold vape and tobacco products to the minor decoys. These are not smoking cessation devices. They're candy-flavored products meant to addict the next generation of tobacco users. They're not FDA approved or regulated. Not a single company that manufactures e-cigarettes has applied to be an approved and effective smoking cessation product. Young people use e-cigarettes at 5 times the rate of older adults. For every additional adult who quits smoking using e-cigarettes, there are 80 additional youth who initiate daily tobacco use through these e-cigarettes. These products don't belong in our children's hands, and they don't belong in Livermore. I'd like to read an excerpt from a letter by a Granada student. Vaping is a very widespread issue at my school, and it's scarily easy for someone to get their hands on an e-cigarette and flavor vape. I think it's important that we put the health of our teens at the forefront of our minds. If these flavor vape products are not banned, teens will continue to get addicted and enticed by these flavors. I thank you, Mayor Marchand, and the City Council for taking a stand against big tobacco and giving our kids a chance to grow up tobacco-free. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Wong. Paula Campbell, Linda L.
Good evening, everyone. I am Paula Campbell, a Livermore parent of 2 teens and a lifelong non-smoker. I am deeply concerned about the vaping epidemic that is affecting the health and welfare of our children in Livermore and in our families. A Dartmouth College Geisel School of Medicine study published in March of 2018 found that for every 1 adult with a fully developed prefrontal cortex of 25 years or older, an adult who quits smoking using e-cigarettes, there are 80 additional youth who initiate daily tobacco use through e-cigarettes. So for every 1 adult who chooses e-cigarettes as a form of cessation, 80 children become daily e-cigarette users. It's maddening. It's heartbreaking. I have a letter that was sent to the Honorable Mayor Marchand and our Livermore City Council dated October 24th, 2018. This letter was written by several Granada High School students. I won't read the entire thing because it's 3 pages, but I will read some very compelling parts. We, the teens of Livermore School District, excuse me, are at the front of a constant war. Every day we are put under fire against an army of products that will kill us. These products are vaping products. We've had the horror of watching our peers fall to these deadly products and lose the war. The vaping trend among teens has dangerously skyrocketed with an increase of over 900% in only 5 years. Tobacco products, especially vaping ones, entice new teen victims each day with innocent flavors. You've heard the flavors before, I don't need to repeat them again. By using flavors, the tobacco industry, also referenced to as big tobacco, targets children to create the next generation of addicts. Adolescents are the most vulnerable to nicotine addiction because their prefrontal cortex is not fully developed until the age of 25, when they can then begin to start making some rational decisions. This sets out to hook the next generation through enticing flavors and packaging. In fact, 4 out of 5 kids that use tobacco began using a flavored product. By eliminating flavors, cities can help save the youth from ever starting to use tobacco products. We want to unite our community in a ban against flavors to protect us, the youth from this constant war. I don't know if that's not compelling enough. I don't know what would be. Thank you very much for your time and your great consideration of this very important ordinance.
Ms. Campbell, thank you very much for coming. Let's see, Linda L. and Asim Ali.
Good evening. Thank you for your time. I didn't find out about this until just a little while ago. I didn't have time to type a bunch of things up on my ePad or pull up a bunch of statistics. I think for myself personally, I was a smoker. I was able to quit smoking, and I'm appreciative of the vaping industry to have a product available to me to help me do that. I didn't like the way it smelled on myself, in my truck. I didn't like bothering the people around me, and all those problems have been eliminated by my choice and my right to vape. I'm a consenting adult. I feel like I deserve to have these local businesses available with the product that I choose to buy legally. I don't think there's any one of the business owners or vaping users around here who want the children to be doing it. That's not what we're trying to say here. I think one of the other speakers said something that made sense. We need to approach this with a scalpel, not a hammer. Maybe sit down with some of the retailers and find out some of their statistics and what their approaches might be for keeping the kids away from these products. I think something else should be emphasized, and that is that, you know, weed is legal, cigarettes are legal, alcohol is legal, but it's all regulated, as it should be. But that's the whole point of it. It should be regulated, not eliminated completely here. The last point I want to make has to do with vaping and not cigarette smoking, and that is that I would hate to see Del Val burn down, and a cigarette can do that anytime. A vapor will never throw a vaping device on the dry brown grass of the Livermore Hills and catch it on fire. That's about it. I wasn't completely prepared, but I wanted to make those points. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for speaking tonight. It's getting close to 9 o'clock. Did you guys want to take a quick break? Okay, so we'll take a quick break at 9, but let's have Asim Ali speak first. Mr. Ali.
Good evening, City Council members. Appreciate you giving us some time to speak tonight. I've heard a lot of comments tonight, and I do believe that a lot of people bring up valid and good concerns and points. But you know, myself and my father have owned a small mini mart on East Avenue for over 20 years now, and we, in that time, have a spotless record of never selling to minors. We are within 1,000 feet of Livermore High School, and we take that, we understand what a responsibility it is to be very vigilant for the youth of the community. I think everybody, again, can agree that we do not want to put the youth in harm's way, but a large number of our customers buy tobacco products from us are adults, and in order to affect their ability to choose, I don't think that's right. I mean, again, this as a sting operation was done, 5 businesses, chose to do something that was against the law, and as the map shown, that would affect 40 other businesses that have not done anything wrong. I agreed to more stringent regulation. I think that there should be higher punishments to selling to adults, but by taking away that choice, I do not think that you do that. I think a lot of the battle here tonight is over vaping. Other tobacco use, again, as the statistics have shown, have been on the decrease. To affect and to punish, again, businesses here for that, I don't think is right. And it's thanks to the years of hard work that me and my father put in. I was able to purchase my own business here in Livermore, Perry's Liquor on Railroad Avenue. That wouldn't have been possible had this ordinance been put in ahead of time. As it was earlier stated, there was no financial, can't think of the right word, but there was no financial impact study conducted. I encourage you guys to do one before putting this ordinance in effect. Again, the outright ban of all tobacco use through or within 1,000 feet of any sensitive area would be a death blow to our business, a business that's been here for 20 years, a business that does sell groceries and a number of other products to the local communities that we've seen grow up over the last 20 years. Again, I think that as one gentleman did make the point, a scalpel was a much better tool to use in this case than a hammer. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ali. Okay, so we're going to take just a real quick break. It's 9 o'clock. We usually take about a 5 or 10 minute break. So we'll be back here at 10 minutes after 9. I have a card here from Christine Cansol. Is she still here? Okay, let me talk to you for a moment. Okay, so back at 9:10. Okay, good evening. Good evening and welcome back to round 2 of the Livermore City Council June 24th meeting. We are the second half of the meeting here, and we're considering the 2 items 5.02 and 6.02. This is on vaping and the resolution, for the joint resolution from the Intergovernmental Committee. So we are in the middle of taking public testimony on the proposed ordinance. And I would like to invite to speak up Ashna Patanayak, Jen Grandlejano, and Rosalind Moya.
Hi, good evening. My name is Ashna Patnaik. I'm a current student at Granada High School. I'm going to be a junior next year. And I just wanted to give some insight on what it's like to see this problem in my everyday life, because I do experience it almost daily. In middle school, I was not really exposed to any of this. I did not know what e-cigarettes were, and I didn't think any of my peers did either. But as soon as I got into high school, I was quickly exposed to many of them, and it became very readily available to many students, and it scared me how easy it was for students to have access to these things. The fact that a student, if they decided that they wanted an e-cigarette, they were able to get it within a day was very terrifying to me. I think that many parents and teachers don't realize how easy it is for their students to access these things, because many kids get them from people who are legally allowed to buy them, such as older siblings or friends who have older siblings. So they're usually not buying them themselves as minors, but they are finding a way to get them from people who have already bought them or have access to buying them without getting caught or getting in trouble. And I think that it's becoming a real issue, because going through already 2 years of high school, I've seen so much. I've seen so many of my friends and peers getting addicted to these things very easily because they think that it doesn't contain nicotine, and they go, okay, let me just try it once or twice, and they eventually get addicted, and they're constantly using it, and they become hooked on it. And this affects them in their health, and they think that it'll just affect them in the long run, but I already have a couple of peers who have had to quit sports because their health reasons have already gone down. Their lungs are not working as well because of this. They are not able to withstand the sports activity as long as they used to be able to, and they can't take part in the sports anymore. And I think that it's becoming a huge issue, and I think that it should definitely be paid more attention to, and that parents should become more aware that students are really they have a lot of access to these things, and it's really easy for them to get their hands on it. Thank you.
Thank you. Jen Grandlejano, Rosalind Moya, Liz Williams.
Good evening, Mayor and Council members. My name is Jen Grandlejano from the American Cancer Society Cancer Action Network. I want to thank you for considering these citywide restrictions on the sale of flavored tobacco in Livermore. The tobacco industry has a kids menu with more than 15,000 flavors like sour worm and cotton candy designed to lure kids into this deadly, lifelong addiction to nicotine. More than 4 out of 5 youth who smoke started with a flavored tobacco product. And when asked why they started, they said because it comes in flavors I like. The availability of these fruit and candy tobacco flavors, plus the epidemic of vaping, has led to a public health crisis all over our country, across the Bay Area, and right here in Livermore. Model policies include menthol cigarettes in the definition of flavors, and menthol cigarettes are historically a starter product. Tobacco is the only legally sold product that, when used as intended, will kill you and should not come in flavors that target our children. We urge you to pass a policy to restrict the sale of flavored tobacco products citywide, including menthol cigarettes, and join the numerous cities in the Bay Area and across the state who have made the health of their youth a priority and already adopted a policy like this. Thank you.
Thank you. Rosalind Moya and Liz Williams.
Hi, my name is Rosalind Moya. I'm the new co-chair for the Alameda County Tobacco Control Coalition. And I like to just throw some facts. Hopefully, although our city staff did a really great job, and so a lot of my facts have been scratched out and I don't have to mention it. But some of the ones, the new ones I wanted to mention is, since you're looking to end the sale of vapes, you know, why vapes? Why not the other tobacco products? Well, it would make a big significant impact. According to the California Student Tobacco Survey, of the youth who currently use tobacco, an overwhelming majority use electronic smoking devices. It's at 84.3%. So that is what you would impact. That's huge. I also want to mention something I learned today that was new about 5 minutes ago, is about Juul, about these salted pods. So one pod, we used to say that one pod has the equivalent of 1 pack of cigarettes. But I've been corrected because the salts actually increase the absorption by 50%. So it's actually 2 packs of cigarettes. So these high school students who are using a whole pod is addicted to about 2 packs of cigarettes a day. Another thing I wanted to mention or give out was, this is the table for the fact that I mentioned. And also I have a pack of the photos here that was in that tub that was confiscated for at a high school for the whole year, just for your records if you want to have some for yourselves. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Moya. Liz Williams, Tracy Andrews, Lemery Rodriguez.
Good evening, Mayor Marchand and council members. I'm Liz Williams with Americans for Non-Smokers' Rights, and we support the ordinance to end the sale of flavored tobacco products at all retailers in the city. This proposal is about reducing the access to these products, especially the flavored vaping products, as well as menthol cigarettes that are enticing young people into inadvertently starting on a lifetime of nicotine addiction. According to a report that was released last month by the California Department of Public Health, 84% of California high schoolers who use tobacco are using vaping products, and 86% of them are using the flavored products. So this is a significant local issue. The same report also found that 1 out of every 3 tobacco and vape shops are selling to underage people, and they have the highest illegal sales rate out of any type of tobacco retailer here in California. So the fact is, if flavored tobacco products are sold in Livermore, youth will still be able to easily access them. We also hear that vaping businesses like to claim that they're not the tobacco industry, that they're something totally different, but all of the major tobacco companies now own e-cigarette brands, including Altria owning part of Juul. And so these vaping companies are using all the exact same tobacco industry tactics that they've used for decades to hook our children. I also want to point out that this ordinance would not allow new tobacco retailers to be located or open up within 1,000 feet of schools and parks, but it does permit existing retailers to keep selling tobacco. But in order to reduce tobacco sales around these spaces over time, we do recommend not including language that would allow tobacco licensees to be transferred when these businesses are sold, so that instead the number of businesses would reduce by attrition. So I want to encourage you to put the health of our young people ahead of tobacco profits, and really thank you for your consideration this evening. Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Williams. Tracy Andrews, Lemery Rodriguez, Nathan Subramanian. Wow, it's quite a selection.
I just want to show you how attractive.
chicken and waffles.
My name is Tracy Andrews, and I'm speaking tonight as a member of the Alameda County Tobacco Control Coalition. I just wanted to read a little blip from a ninth grader from LVJ who said, the flavored tobacco products are not just unhealthy for you, they also attract the minds of the youth in Livermore with bright colored packages and flavors which stand out to kids, hence the basket. I'm deeply concerned about the health risk and epidemic rise in the number of youth who are smoking the flavored nicotine products. As a registered dental hygienist for 35 years, I actually watched the decline of the youth with smoking tobacco, which was great. In the last 2 years, we've actually seen this epidemic in the vape pens come around. And so the problem really is that it's really big tobacco coming back and saying to another generation of people that they can get to smoke, oh, here's a way you can do it. And these kids are not of legal smoking age. In the Unified School District for LVJ, 1 in 3 of the 11th graders have reported using the e-cigarettes. But shockingly, 38% think that there's no harm or very little harm. I brought you an example of Juul. This is the pod that is, depending on how you say it, 20 cigarettes or 41 cigarettes. It really is not like a typical cigarette. You don't know how much nicotine they're ingesting when they smoke it because everybody's going to use the Juul in a different way, whereas a cigarette, one cigarette, you smoke it, you know you smoked one cigarette. We don't know how much nicotine they're smoking. Because they're unregulated, there's no truth to labeling and to know how much nicotine is actually contained in the current liquids. One of the products that I have in here, it says right on here, 0 nicotine, but on the back, it says it contains nicotine. And when you go into the inside of the product, it says it contains nicotine. So it's kind of misleading, and there's no regulation to really figure that out. So if you're wondering, why am I concerned about this? Nicotine is addictive. We're already in a very angst and mood swing producing stage in adolescence. We don't need the extra anxiety of a stealth type of nicotine addiction. And nicotine can harm the adolescent brain development and reduce performance. We know that. So if you're wondering how many flavored tobacco, if it's readily available in your community, 66% of the stores in the city of Livermore surveyed sell flavored tobacco smoking devices. 98% of the stores surveyed sell flavored tobacco products, and 90% sell the mentholated cigarettes. Flavored tobacco restrictions can reduce our non-smoking youth's risk to be vulnerable to the appeal of flavored tobacco. So thank you for considering this important health issue for your community.
Thank you, Ms. Andrews. Lemary Rodriguez, Nathan Subramanian, Alexandra Hernandez.
Good evening, council members and staff. My name is Limairi Rodriguez, and I am speaking tonight on behalf of the Alameda County Tobacco Control Coalition. I first want to thank you all for the leadership y'all have taken in addressing tobacco-related health inequities. As many of y'all are aware, the tobacco industry has a history of appropriating the cultures of certain communities, such as Native Americans, African Americans, Hispanic, Latinx, Asian, Pacific Islanders, and the LGBTQ community in their marketing strategies using value traditions to promote tobacco use. With tobacco products offered in many flavors and sometimes found to be cheaper than a candy bar, avoidable differences in health status between groups of people continue to prevail. Specifically for menthol, the tobacco industry began targeting African American communities in the 1960s with menthol cigarette marketing, including discounts, sampling, cultural event sponsorship, and black media promotion. This contributed to menthol's popularity in communities of color, encouraging uptake and addiction. Research shows that while menthol accounts for 30% of U.S. cigarette sales, over 82% of African American smokers prefer menthol, which is nearly 3 times higher than white smokers. Studies also show that the use of mentholated tobacco products is higher not only among African Americans, but also among youth and other ethnic minorities. While 37% of all smokers smoke menthol cigarettes, 50% of 12 to 17-year-old smokers smoke menthol cigarettes. That is because menthol creates a cooling effect that reduces the harshness of cigarette smoke and surpasses the coughing, increasing the likelihood of smoking initiation among youth and severely affecting the likelihood of someone becoming addicted and a long-time daily smoker. Given the impact of menthol cigarettes on public health and the authority of local governments to strengthen local tobacco control, Livermore has the great potential of saving lives. Taking action to eliminate menthol moves us closer to ending the tobacco epidemic and upholds the health of marginalized communities. And I look forward to seeing your continued leadership in keeping Livermore residents safe from an industry determined to do them harm. Thank you.
Thank you. Nathan Subramanian, Alexander Hernandez, Rachel Gratz Lazarus.
Hello, good evening, City Council. My name is Nathan Subramanian, and I'm speaking on behalf of the Alameda County Tobacco Control Coalition. I'd like to express my concern about the availability of cheaply priced tobacco products and those that are sold in small package sizes. This issue is particularly relevant to me because growing up, throughout high school, underage, I frequently purchased individually wrapped Swishers, Black & Mild, cigarillos, etc. At my local smoke shop for $1 out the door. This was the standard, this was the standard going rate at the time, more than a decade ago. While it's safe to say that most things have become more expensive since then, it's easy to find cigarillos in Livermore stores today, wrapped individually for as little as 79 cents unflavored. And that's based on survey data that myself and a few other colleagues collected recently. So despite inflation, these highly toxic and addictive products now cost less than back then. And a ban on flavored little cigars and cigarillos will do nothing to restrict access to their cheaply priced, unflavored counterparts, the next most accessible option for nicotine-dependent youth. 85% of the local retailers surveyed sell little cigars or cigarillos in pack sizes as small as one, and for prices less than $2. Youth and low-income individuals are price sensitive, meaning that their ability to consume a product is heavily dependent on cost. They're also prone to try new things, and the lack of commitment afforded by individually wrapped tobacco products is enticing. Cheaply priced small package products are themselves a form of advertisement that promote the trial and initiation that often leads to a lifetime of addiction. There's no reason that an addictive product should cost less than candy. Minimum price floors and package size requirements are legally sound and easy to enforce. While conducting store surveys myself personally, in Livermore, not once did I have to request pack size or price information from cashiers for little cigars or cigarillos. They're conspicuously placed and boldly labeled, making them easy to identify and review for retailer compliance. I implore you to consider youth addiction, the difficulty of cessation when there's readily available products still in the community, and the overall health of the community when considering the issue of minimum price and package size. Thank you.
Thank you. Alexander Hernandez, Rachel Gratz Lazarus, Michael Ali.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Alexandra Hernandez, and I'm speaking as a member of the Alameda County Tobacco Control Coalition. But I've also had members of my own family, like my young cousins who are in high school, also tell me about the stories of going into the bathroom and seeing like all the girls on their soccer team vaping and feeling like very peer pressured into feeling like in order to fit in and in order to feel cool that, that you should do that and that it's something that is cool. However, since my work with the coalition began, I've been able to read up on a lot of the different facts, and I wanted to share a couple of those with you tonight. One of the shocking finds I came across in my research is that although it's legal, there are over 19% of retailers statewide that sell tobacco to underage adults. In fact, on April 5th, the Livermore Police Department did a youth decoy operation in which 50% of the tobacco retailers surveyed sold to minor decoys. On top of that, youth believe that these addictive tobacco products are very easy to get. 72% of the LVJUSD 11th graders believe that it's either very easy or fairly easy to obtain e-cigarettes. And 52% believe that it's very or fairly easy to obtain cigarettes. There are also approximately 60 tobacco retailers in Livermore, most of which are located near youth-sensitive areas. And so I thank you tonight for considering this policy.
Thank you, Ms. Hernandez. Rachel Gratz-Lazarus, Mike Ali, and Josh.
Good evening, Council. My name is Rachel Gratz-Lazarus, and I'm speaking tonight as a member of the Alameda County Tobacco Control Coalition. This is a quote from a Granada High School student. "It is undeniable that these flavors are getting kids hooked on nicotine as early as 6th grade. As a 9th grader, I am sad and embarrassed to acknowledge the fact that I know many addicts who are only 14. As a public health advocate and a parent, I'm deeply concerned about the way the tobacco industry is targeting our youth and other vulnerable communities with flavored tobacco products, including menthol. This is why the FDA banned the sale of flavored cigarettes in 2009. I am concerned about the epidemic of e-cigarettes and vape use among youth. 90% of all adults addicted to a substance report becoming addicted to a substance before the age of 18. As you know, for every one adult who may quit using e-cigarettes, 80 kids and youth become addicted to nicotine. Electronic smoking devices are not approved by the FDA as a smoking cessation product. And while there is anecdotal evidence that some people have successfully used electronic smoking devices to quit smoking cigarettes, research has found that many people who attempt to quit smoking by using electronic smoking devices end up with dual use of both traditional tobacco and electronic smoking devices. While store owners may be doing their best to prohibit tobacco sales to minors, the reality is that tobacco products are making their way into the hands of young people exactly as tobacco companies have intended in order to make a profit. Retailers can and will replace lost profits from the sale of deadly flavored tobacco products with profits from healthier products. We can find products to sell our community members that don't kill when used as directed. It's worth noting that we have yet to see tobacco stores go out of business due to policies like this, even in places like San Francisco, which has completely banned the sale of flavored tobacco citywide, including an adult-only tobacco stores and vape shops. Menthol is a social justice issue. We know that tobacco companies have historically targeted youth, as well as African American, Asian, Hispanic, and LGBTQ communities with highly concentrated specialized menthol cigarette marketing campaigns, which is a major driver of today's tobacco-related disparities. And lastly, I'd like to share a few comments about price. We know that when tobacco is cheap and pack sizes are small, tobacco products are more affordable for young people to buy. Tobacco companies are well aware of this fact, as they spend millions of dollars each year to heavily promote and strategically price their products. Exposure to this marketing in the retail environment highly encourages initiation in tobacco use, especially among youth and price-sensitive groups. Establishing a minimum price and pack size for tobacco products and prohibiting the redemption of tobacco discounts and coupons are effective ways to reduce smoking and tobacco use. Livermore's proposed ordinance currently includes no minimum price for tobacco products or minimum pack size for cigars. So singles like this grape little cigar and 2-pack of this banana smash cigarillos are currently available for sale in the city for under $1, cheaper than the cost of a candy bar. A recent store observation survey shows that unflavored tobacco products are also very available. It's very significant, as a ban on the sale of flavored tobacco may mean that cheap unflavored tobacco products are the next most accessible option for youth who are already nicotine dependent. Thank you.
Thank you. Mike Ali, Josh, Daniel Ramirez. Mr. Ali.
Yes, my name is Mike Ali, and I have a store over here in East Avenue in Livermore. My son mentioned to you guys. I'm in this business for 40 years. And we are owning this store for the last 20 years, and I'm an EPCA member myself too. And we got 2 high schools close by, but we're watching every single sale because in our PO system, you cannot sell it till you have to check the ID. So the question is, when you do all things by the law, and our customer is a local customer, they're walking customer, and they don't just buy this tobacco only. They buy other stuff like milk, bread, eggs, alcohol, everything. So if you take this opportunity for cigarettes from that store, the store will be shut down because there is no way the store can afford it. Because if you don't get the one item, everybody knows about it. You can go to other store where you buy all the other stuff. Okay, so you want to be punished to all the elderly neighborhood people. They don't have cars, they don't have the access. Okay, so they have to go all the way to the 2-mile or 3-mile walk on public transportation to get their own food. So I don't think so is the right thing to do. The second thing is to ban the tobacco in Livermore. I like to be healthy in Livermore. I like to be not to sell the minors. I have 3 kids myself. I'm grandfather. I like to be that healthy thing. But it doesn't mean you punish the one store, one community. If you stop Livermore, what can happen? They go to the Hayward, they go to Tracy, they'll get it because they are over 21 and they drive the car. This is all I'm hearing whole evening, the tobacco, and all the cheapy stuff. Do you guys know where they got it? Are they got from Livermore? Are they got from different cities? Okay. My personal experience, I'm sorry to take your time, but I have to tell my personal experience. I have 3 young boys. One is 35, one is 32, and one is 28. Out of 3 kids, 1 kid smoked, 2 doesn't. Because my eldest kids were smoking, it was because my mistake. It's not because I'm selling the tobacco in my store. I'm selling for 40 years. Because I didn't train him, my son, the first one, and he's smoking. Then I trained my second and third, and they don't smoke. One is here right now. They went to the Boston University. They went to the NYU. So training starts from your home and from a school, not from the retailer. Our business to sell it and not to sell to minor. So please consider that. And my request to you guys, bring all the retailer together. We work together and we can make a clean and nice environment in Livermore, rather than pass the ordinance and shut down the businesses. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ali. Josh, Daniel Ramirez, and Scott Vernoy.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Something that you guys have probably already noticed, but I'd like to point out anyways, is the whole bunch of people with the yellow cards all coming together and flooding the City Council. If in the future it would be easier for me to get my point across by inviting 40 people over to spread apart my different points into different sections, then I will do that in the future. But I'd just like to point that out. Moving into what I actually want to talk about is the Public Health of England, which is the equivalent of the United States Department of Health. They have actually started giving out e-cigarettes as prescriptions to smokers to help them quit. There's also studies been done that 65 to 68% of people who used e-cigarettes succeeded in quitting in the UK. And it's been significantly higher than other replacement therapies. David Levy, professor with the Georgetown University Bombardier Comprehensive Cancer Center in Washington, D.C., showed a direct correlation between the decrease of smoking and the increase in vaping. The percentages show that here in the U.S. that teen vapors has not gone beyond the threshold of teen smokers prior to 2013, back when vaping started to become popular. This is not an epidemic. There is no drastic increase between vaping and smoking prior to 2013. And the rates have shown a drastic decrease in smoking in youth because of vaping. Now, I don't endorse vaping to minors. Nicotine is an addictive substance. But keep in mind that the only correlation between smoking and vaping is nicotine itself. There are no other ingredients that are in smoking that are also in vaping. All the studies done in terms of cancer research in regards to smoking are only based on ingredients that aren't included in vaping at all. Nicotine has shown no form of cancer inducing, only its addictive properties. I would also like to point out that Livermore has made absolutely no changes in regard to smoking pre or prior 2013, even though the rates are consistent between smoking and vaping in regards to teen usage prior and after 2013, as well as the fact that usage of teens in marijuana has drastically increased and is also addictive, yet is also not being spoken of at all here today. Something else I would like to point out is that alcohol is also sold with fruity flavors. and yet that is also not being discussed. Because I also enjoy fruity flavors, and I don't understand why fruity flavors should be banned because kids enjoy fruity flavors as well. In closing, banning vaping not only harms smokers who are trying to quit, but it also harms our small businesses here in Livermore, and it completely ignores the real issue, and that is the addictive substance behind it, and that teenagers shouldn't be able to get it in the first place. It's poor parenting, and yeah, that's all. Thank you.
Thanks, Josh. Daniel Ramirez, Scott Vernoy.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. I am an employee at one of the vape shops here in Livermore. We were part of the sting that happened, and we successfully declined a sale to the minor, in which I had the officer who was with the minor come in about 2 minutes after, gave me an attaboy. That's a quote from him. Yeah, said he was willing to speak to my manager, the owner, let him know that I did my job. It's difficult with this ban just because I feel like I'm doing my part along with a lot of the other employees and business owners that are here today to prevent the sale of tobacco products to minors. And it's confusing as to why we should be punished even though we're doing all the right things. Vaping has helped so many of my customers quit smoking. I've had smokers from 20 plus, 30 plus years, and they have worked from a high concentration of nicotine all the way down to a very, very low concentration of nicotine with a goal in mind of eventually quitting completely down to the 0 milligrams of nicotine, and then off completely. I don't feel that banning flavored tobacco would really make an impact. As many people have said before, anyone can go to the next town over, can order online. Especially with the online sales, most do not require any sort of age verification. At the minimum, it's like, put in a birth date, which anybody can lie on. Some require a photo ID, but some are even just are you older than 18? Okay, and you can go ahead and purchase whatever you want from this online website. I'm sorry, I'm getting lost for words here. It's not going to prevent these kids from getting it anywhere else. Another thing I wanted to touch on is alcohol. Like Josh had just said, a lot of them come in fruity flavors. I remember growing up here in Livermore, I was able to get access to tons of fruity flavored alcohol: green apple, vanilla cupcake, salted caramel. I don't see any action being taken against that, and I don't understand why not. It just doesn't make sense. And as an adult now, I'm 23, I can legally purchase this stuff because, well, I like it still. I mean, it doesn't matter whether I'm 13 or 23. I like green apple. I like gummy bears. I like cotton candy. I like vanilla custard. And these flavored tobaccos have helped me not smoke. I actually used to be, unlike many of the people here, I was addicted to hookah. So, and those come in flavored tobaccos as well, or flavors as well. And so this has kind of got me off, and I've been at 3 milligrams, which is a very, very low concentration for a long time, and I'm on the verge of quitting here. Last point, I feel like this ban is going to affect a lot of people's jobs. Me personally, I'm a college student. I need to make ends meet. I need to pay rent. I need to pay bills. And I know a lot of college students that are working at these vape shops because they're flexible schedules, convenient location. They're here in town, close to where a lot of people live. And so I feel like financially it's going to affect a lot of members of the community and a lot of businesses that sell these flavored tobacco products. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ramirez. Scott Vernoy.
Good evening, Mayor Mashan, members of the council. My name is Scott Vernoy. I'm Director of Student Services for the Livermore Valley Joint Unified School District. I'm here tonight, first of all, to thank you for giving all of us the opportunity to help you understand why or the dangers of the products emit on our use. Over the past couple years as Director of Student Services and in charge of discipline, I have seen over a 200% increase in the number of offenses at our high schools considering tobacco and vaping products. I would tell you that this is tobacco 2.0. During my lifetime of 60 years, it has taken millions of lives and millions of dollars of education to help people understand the dangers of tobacco and nicotine. We have gone from making smoking socially unacceptable to big tobacco coming back with something that makes it socially acceptable. Hopefully you can see what they're trying to do is addict a new generation. I would encourage all of you to reverse this trend as quick as possible before it's too late. I think we need to vote with urgency tonight and not continue to push this ball down the road. I thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Vernoy. Okay, thank you all very much. That concludes the cards that I have right now, so I'm going to close the public hearing. Thank you for all of your comments. I certainly appreciate the personal perspectives as well as the volume of analytical perspectives as well. Bring it back to the council. Any questions at this point for staff? Okay, comments. Oh, question, Councilmember Monroe.
I wanted to, a question was raised a couple of times about selling the single-use cigarettes, cigarillos, cigars, and so on, and the effect of that. And I'm wondering if you could speak to how that could affect the legislation.
So right now, one of the examples was used was I think a chicken and waffles cigarillo, one of the small packs. That would be prohibited by this particular ordinance, not because of the single size, but rather because of the flavoring. And so that's the ordinance focuses on, the flavored tobacco, vaping devices, as well as the vaping fluid. There's a second component, which is a tobacco retailer license. Anybody who retails tobacco has to get that licensing and go through that scheme. If they sell to minors, they put their license in jeopardy and may have to close business. But the prohibition focuses on flavored tobacco, vaping devices, and vaping fluid.
Somebody brought up the issue of transferring a TRL. Can you speak to that, please?
So the ordinance does prohibit the transfer of TRL unless it's at an arm's length transaction. The comment I recall was raising an issue with regard to a grandfathered location. A business that's within 1,000 feet of a youth location. The ordinance would allow that use to continue both as a business operation for tobacco retail as well as a retail land use that could sell tobacco, provided they didn't violate the ordinance.
Right. Okay, thanks.
Any other questions? Comments?
Comments. Yeah, I thank everybody for coming out and speaking to this, because I was really curious to see what kind of a mix we'd have with the pros and cons of such an ordinance, because it is an extreme ordinance. But it's a necessarily extreme ordinance, I believe. Many don't know me, especially if you're a smoker, probably. But I used to be a 445 miler when I was running. In my wheelchair, I rolled 70-mile days. I've climbed 14,000-foot peaks. None of these would have occurred had I been addicted to nicotine in one way, one form or another. None of that would have happened. And to watch kids around town vaping, I heard the word alarmed out there, and I am alarmed. to see how this plays out. If it were up to me, those who supported or I'd say opposed the ordinance also threw in the marijuana and alcohol thing, and I'd be all for that. Where we're talking about tobacco and vaping devices tonight. So I'm just, it's just too important to hear that we take this up tonight and make a decision on this ordinance. Is it too strict? Is it not strict enough? We'll have to churn that out here as we go along here, I believe. But yeah, I've just never been a supporter of tobacco in general. So.
So the first time I really was aware that vaping was even an issue was last fall when it was raised at the council debates. I really had not been aware of it. My children are grown. I don't live in an environment where it was present. But boy, have I gotten an education. And here's where I come from. I come from a place where I'm very much aware of what big tobacco has done in the past, what it's done over the past centuries, or beginning in the beginning of the 20th century, if not before. And honestly, at this point, big tobacco is the villain. I want to make that really clear. The gentleman who spoke, who said he was addicted at 14, he's addicted because at that point, big tobacco was selling cigarettes and marketing them to minors. That's true for most of the people who are addicted and who then were switched over to Juul. When I was shown gummy candies, I have an 8-year-old granddaughter. These are things that she would pick up and eat because she's 8 years old. I find this appalling. I find it utterly and completely appalling. I really, really understand and feel for people whose businesses will be impacted. But again, I want to go back to the cause of this, and that cause is big tobacco. We are responding to that. When the city council asked for the staff to come back with regulations, I at least, and I think many of us, were concerned that this be something which was structural in nature, because one of the best ways to change behavior is to avoid having the product present. Now you think about this, we've all been on diets. We know that if we keep the potato chips in the house or we keep the potato chips close by, we're more likely to eat them. If we want to not have the potato chips, we get them out of the house. That's what we're doing here. If we move the tobacco products, the vaping products out of Livermore, it does not stop people who want to get them and who are over age and who can drive from getting them. Will it reduce it entirely in the schools? No. Will it eliminate it? It won't. It will reduce it substantially, and that's actually a really good start. If we change the culture, that is how we stop smoking. That's how we stop vaping. I grew up, as a young adult and older adult, I watched us put those anti-smoking regulations. I watched us go from smoke-filled restaurants to non-smoke-filled restaurants. And, I don't want to have to fight that battle again, but here we are, one more time. So, yeah, I am very supportive of what the city staff has brought forward to us. As my colleague says, it is tough, but it's not going to stop anybody from vaping. It will reduce the likelihood that those who are most vulnerable will get it. And one more thing, which is that big tobacco is the villain. Big tobacco also doesn't pay for the damage it wreaks. We all pay for that damage, and that's not okay with me either.
Vice Mayor Carling?
I appreciate my colleague's passion about this. I agree with her as well. I just had a couple of things that were brought up that maybe we could help clarify. Mr. Seiler brought up the enforcement side. I mean, Jason, could you or somebody speak to that? And I mean, if somebody at the high school is still, or someplace that's underage is vaping, that's not particularly against the law at this point, is it? And I know we're not addressing that here tonight.
Yeah,
but it was brought up by one of the speakers.
Yes, underage use of tobacco products is illegal under Penal Code Section 308. Luckily we have Horizons Family Counseling, does a lot of educational things. I'm not sure if targeting juveniles is going to solve the problem.
Sure.
But yeah, it's definitely a component of enforcement.
Okay. The other thing that we heard some about was the loss of business, and I think some of the materials I read suggested that convenience stores and so on is mostly about selling things to eat and drink rather than tobacco products. Is that a fair description of what a typical convenience store is, or not?
So this ordinance, it would depend upon the nature of the particular business. If your exclusive product was tobacco, obviously.
Well, sorry, I'm in a convenience store whose principal product to sell is not tobacco, like at a gas station, for example.
So there's a variety of products in there. I don't have a study
Yeah.
before me of what happens in Livermore. Other cities have performed those studies and determined that if it's just one product of many that's sold, the impact is not as significant as if it was the sole product.
Right, okay.
Councilmember Warner?
Did you have what was your conclusion?
My conclusion was so there was an analysis done, I think, from some of the material that we got in there, it was hard to estimate the sales tax consequences or how much sales tax was generated from tobacco sales or flavored tobacco sales in the city. I think that's true. But you could make an estimate for those establishments whose primary product was in fact tobacco or flavored tobaccos, and that was about what, $43,000 in sales tax revenue?
Yeah.
In a city budget of $100 million. Am I right? That's less than 0.1%.
Those numbers are correct.
So the issue about the city losing money is way down in the weeds, from my point of view. So, I don't. If this is supposed to alarm us because we're going to lose a lot of revenue for the city, that simply isn't true. So, I think I'll turn it over to you.
Okay, I'm not sure I heard a conclusion, but the where I'm coming out on this is that, as Councilmember Monroe, I first became aware of it last fall because some of the concerned parents approached me and asked a question and followed up. And as more I've looked into this and gone to the schools and talked with the children and parents, it's pretty clear to me that we have a significant problem. It's getting worse, dramatically worse, and that we need to do something about it. And I've heard the concerns of the adults that they need access to this, and we have to make a choice here. And I think that the strongest measure we can take is what we should do, because I'm very concerned about the impact on the children. I think it's just horrible what I see going on in the approach of the marketing. And so I'm very strongly in favor of the ordinance as it is.
Okay. I also became aware of this. Mostly I was out walking Gatsby, and one of my neighbors swooped down upon me with all sorts of evidence about the problem with vaping in the schools. And so a little bit of history. I spent my career, as many of you know, as a water quality chemist. And I spent my career chasing parts per billion of compounds and chasing after the statistical possibility of preventing one cancer in 1 million population over a 70-year lifespan. Tobacco kills 500,000 people a year. The one comment tonight that just really struck home for me tonight, one of the speakers said, that tobacco is the only product that, when used as directed, will kill you. I just find that stunning, and it's true. It kills 500,000 people a year. And people talk about, well, it's our choice to kill ourselves and to smoke. But not to addict children and to set them on a lifetime of addiction. Nicotine typically is used for one thing. It's a pesticide, a very toxic pesticide. Nicotine sulfate. A lot of people use that for aphids. But it's been established that many people start with flavored products. We've heard that over and over again in the research. And I think this ordinance is an effort to prevent the creation of a whole new generation of addicts. And our number one priority here in Livermore is public safety. And to stand aside and allow the creation of a whole new generation of addicts, yeah, it's not going to be perfect. People will still have access to it. Somebody suggested an entrepreneur is going to go out and buy a whole case of this stuff and sell it at the high school. Yeah, but it's not going to be as accessible. Another suggestion is, well, why don't you go after alcohol? This is wine country after all. We've got 62 wineries here in Livermore, and I don't recall one of them ever specifically targeting children to get them to start using their product. When I saw the Sour Patch Kids as a vaping fluid, it was stunning. That is specifically targeted for children. I don't know of any adults that eat Sour Patch Kids. So, okay, well, as I said, I don't have any adults, but they were specifically targeted for children. And I find that truly offensive, because we're supposed to be protecting our children. And this is an attempt to recognize the importance of limiting access. Your point about the potato chips, yeah, that's if it's not easily accessible, then you're going to reduce the potential. And the anecdotal evidence of, oh, well, people that are using this to quit smoking, that Dartmouth study, where for everybody that uses to quit smoking, every adult that uses to quit smoking, you've created 80 new child addicts that will be addicted to nicotine for their entire lives. And yeah, we don't have the studies on this yet, on what the lifetime effect is of vaping. But I know what the long-term impact is of nicotine addiction. And it's not pretty. So I will support the ordinance, and with that, I'll ask for the council if there is a motion.
I'll move we accept the proposed ordinance.
And was that second by Councilmember Warner?
Only because he got there first.
Pardon me?
But only because he got there first.
Yeah, well, okay, any discussion on that motion? And this, okay, so let me just clarify this. This will introduce the ordinance adopting the municipal code amendment and add a new chapter 5.50 for the tobacco retail licensing to be added to the Livermore Municipal Code and the related product sales. So we have a motion by the Vice Mayor Carling, seconded by Councilmember Warner. Any further discussion on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposition? That passes unanimously. Thank you all for your input tonight. Thank you very much.
We
covered, that was, 6.2 was.
So
we need to do 6.2.
Pardon me, 6.0.
You took a motion on the ordinance, which is item 5.03. You still have one on the table, the resolution for 6.02.
All right.
Okay, all right. Resolution 6.02.
I'm just making a motion?
Yeah.
I move to accept it.
And I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? It passed unanimously. Thank you.
Before you all leave, we've got a great report out here from all of us. It's the best part of the meeting.
Come on. You can leave.
We didn't do
No.
5.03?
We did 503. We need to do 601.
We didn't get a motion on that?
Yeah.
I thought we passed that.
We did.
Yes, you did.
passed
He
it? We only have
misspoke. So in
601.
other words, yes. So you've done 502 and
Oh, you said you had
503.
5.03. I thought
I'm sorry.
I
No.
did that already.
No,
We
you
did.
did that
Yes,
already.
correct.
Okay.
So you got 601 left and report outs.
Messing with me. Okay. Phew. Had me going there for a second. Right, 6.01 is the appointment of city council members to the subcommittee on advisory bodies. Councilmember Warner and I were the last 6 months. So going by the typical rotation, that would be Councilmember Monroe would be stepping up to that. So that would be Councilmember Warner and Councilmember Monroe will be the next subcommittee. All right? Very good. With that, thank you for all of your comments and evidence tonight. Certainly appreciate that. And with that, we move to matters initiated. Yes. Okay.
Well, I'll start easily by saying I have nothing to initiate tonight. How about that? And in terms of, I think I've reported out at our last meeting on all the meetings I had had. I did attend this weekend's Relay for Life at Livermore, at Granada High. I was so used to saying Livermore High for those years. It's a benefit, a 24-hour benefit for the American Cancer Society, and it went very well. It's smaller than it used to be, which is kind of sad to see, but hopefully next year we'll encourage a little more interest in that. And I don't think I have anything else I can think of to report, but it was a good gathering there, and I went out for a while, not my usual 24 hours. I like to go 24 hours and 50 to 55 miles, but it just didn't have time for it this year. So,
but it's good to see you there.
Worked out well, yes.
And I showed up at Livermore High School first because the car just automatically went there. It's always been at Livermore High. So great.
Exactly. I almost did that, and unfortunately, I go by on the way to get to Granada.
It's like, where'd everybody go?
What happened? Did they move it?
Yeah.
It's great.
Councilmember Monroe.
Telling you the best part of the night. This is where, so I have no matters initiated. In the last couple of weeks, the group that was the grassroots group meeting to work on air quality mitigation or monitoring and mitigation has put together and submitted a grant. A number of people have worked on that, but I particularly wanted to call out Jennifer Yeamans for doing an awesome job with that. I've started. A number of us have started meeting, going out with the city to the farmers market to be more accessible to Livermore citizens. I did that on July 13th, and it was really interesting. Some great ideas came out of it, and I'm looking forward to doing more of that. I've done a couple of things with League of California Cities. July 14th. I went as part of the community services representative to hear about legislation there and to see a presentation on an educational model funded by Chan Zuckerberg, so it's expensive, but it's a total educational model. It looks incredibly wonderful and works with kids, all of whom are in some kind of need. I've started reading at the library with preschoolers. I had the joy of reading a book called Hello to Them and then meeting with parents afterwards. Again, I'm going to be doing that through the summer. A lot of fun. And had an EBCE, East Bay Community Choice Energy. Power generation is happening. They've done some signings on that. And Livermore will have windmills out here, which will be fun powering that. Finally, I wanted to mention the Lights for Liberty and just say that it sounds like a wonderful program. I'm planning on supporting it, and I'm really hoping that we can, as members of this community, work towards a better quality of life for everybody. Thank you.
Do you know what the date is for that?
July 12th.
Okay, very good. Councilmember Warner?
A few things. I also helped out at the city booth at the farmers market. Did the interviews with for some of the subcommittees. A projects and services committee meeting for LAVTA. So a bunch of things like that, but nothing more to report on.
Vice Mayor Carling.
Yeah, I had only a stop waste meeting on the 13th of June, and Ms. Copps asked me a question during Citizens Forum about whether I had heard at any of our meetings about her proposal that she made to stop waste, and the answer to she's not here now, but the answer is no. And I don't know that she also asked a question about whether they'd stop waste meetings would come to Livermore, and I think the answer to that is no, but at least I suppose I can ask the question because they haven't moved those. They don't move those meetings around. They're always in Oakland.
Okay. On June 12th, I attended the Valley Link meeting where we reviewed the feasibility report, all 840 pages of it, 1,300 if you include the supporting documents. And all of that comes together and says, yes, it is feasible. So that's a good thing to know. And we had tonight we approved seeking the grant for the Isabel Neighborhood Plan, but funding is always an issue on these things, and there are a variety of pots where that money could be coming from. So we'll be working very hard with the state, the feds, and also locally to secure funding for both the operations and the capital costs for Valley Link. But I think it's very exciting that on this, the last month being the 150th anniversary of the completion of the Transcontinental Railroad, that this Valley Link will be reactivating the original alignment of the Transcontinental Railroad. I just think that's very cool. The same day, we had the Alameda County Mayor's Conference in Emeryville. They had their downtown streets team was there, and they have a low barrier work experience program for the unhoused and at-risk individuals. The volunteer teams to work with unhoused individuals and to change perceptions of homelessness while improving their communities. So it's quite an effort, and they're piloting a number of efforts over there. June 21st and 22nd, we had the AOPA, the Aircraft Owners and Pilots Association, came out here to celebrate their 80th anniversary. This is a group of over 400,000 aircraft owners and pilots, and they are the largest association in the country. We had over 450 planes fly in. We had the Lockheed Electra here, the plane that, well, it's not the plane, but it was like the plane that Amelia Earhart flew. Somebody actually asked, is that the plane that she flew? No. But no, what a beautiful plane, though, the Lockheed Electra. But the PP-21 Mustangs were there, just a lot of really cool planes, and about 10,000 people were there. So it was really a remarkable event. It was the largest event ever on the West Coast, and probably the second largest AOPA event in the country. As far as matters initiated, I'd like to complete something that was actually started by Councilmember Spidowski a while back, and that was he recognized that frequently we had members of the LVPAC board would come and speak to the council, but there was never an opportunity for members of the council to address the LVPAC board. And obviously we have common interests. We own the building, so we do have common interests, and the LVPAC board members expressed concerns about messages from different council members. So what I'd like to do is to, in an effort to improve communication between the City Council and the LVPAC board, is I would like to appoint a specific liaison from Alameda, from our City Council to the LVPAC board, and I'd like to appoint Councilmember Warner to the position of the council's liaison to the LVPAC board. So we'll be improving the communication between these two deliberative bodies. So with that, there being no further business coming to the council, I'll adjourn the meeting to July 8th. Thank you very much. Good evening.